Hello, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Camera with AndyGames. This is the podcast where I interview streamers and content creators with the sole purpose of getting to know the person a little bit better behind the camera. Today's guest, we have Louie Cartoon. Louie, thanks for
Hello,
taking the
hello.
time to
Thanks.
come on Behind the Camera. How are we doing?
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. No, I've been excited to reschedule this since that October one that I effed up.
Nah, it's no
But
dramas.
thank you for having me here finally, brother. What a day to have me too.
Yeah, I
After the whole
know.
TikTok thing. We'll get to that later, I guess, but damn,
100%.
bro.
Yeah, like it's such a crazy thing as well. You reschedule and yourself being pretty much solely a TikTok streamer, like, and today being
Yeah.
like the first day is when you come on, which like you say, we will cover this, of course, but like it's one of them things. I think everybody like knew it was coming, but it was like one of those things you hear like bad shit happening in the news, for example, and it's like, nah, that could never happen here, could never happen here. And
Yeah.
today obviously is the day it happened, and it's like, so it's like it's so weird because like I spent like a lot of today been in people's streams and stuff, and like TikTok has been like a fucking ghost town. It's been so quiet. It's so weird. I guess it shows like how many like, American streamers that I follow and watch and stuff like that.
Half of the users, yeah, half of the
Yeah,
users were apparently from over here.
yeah. Like that's just absolutely insane. And it's like even like the sort of American viewers, everyone's like not really knowing what to do with themselves today as well. I've noticed it's been kind of so weird and so surreal.
I
Hopefully,
think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of Westerners about the direction that their governments can go in.
oh yeah,
And
100%.
in a broader sense, it's good for them to understand like you're not immune to that.
Oh
Like it
yeah.
could happen to you too. Like,
No, that's so true, man.
so
So
yeah,
true.
like I, I'm 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 sort of like just kind of on standby, and I've been preparing other ways, like with other monetary jobs in the background. Like I do a lot of videography.
Hmm.
Here, I'll show you one of my camera
Oh
rigs. This
shit.
one here. This is the camera that Bo Burnham used for his Netflix
Oh
special.
wow.
What was it called?
Inside.
Inside something
Yeah.
or yeah. This is the exact camera and
That's
lens
so
he
sick.
used. I was inspired by that because the fact that Netflix lets you upload in that with that camera, I was like, this is the lowest entry camera
Hmm.
for Netflix.
That's
So
so sick.
whenever I got a gig for a documentary, the the clients the client, I'm sorry for
No,
speaking
you're all
away
good,
from it,
dude.
but
You're all good.
the client asked me like, "Hey, is there any?" Because I didn't want to take the job for one of the documentaries. It was my biggest documentary that I made privately, just for like a politician. I didn't want to take it because I'm not into politics, but one of the closing deals, I was like, I told the client like, it takes a lot of money to because he wanted it on Netflix. I'm like, I don't have equipment for Netflix, and he's like, I'll buy you the equipment, and I was like, uh, okay, sign here, and
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
uh, yeah, it's a $7,000 setup, and he threw it on top. He threw it at this politician guy that wanted to run locally, and I looked into the case, and this person that he wanted me to make the documentary on, like an expose, was a really bad person.
Oh
Like
wow.
they had a kind of like a history of doing a lot of bad things, and me being a local, I'm like, I don't want that person to be in power. So I got really invested into that documentary. Um, but yeah, like there's a lot of things like that that I'm sure viewers would like to know. Like, yeah,
Oh yeah.
I do make, I am a filmmaker. I do a lot of other things in the background, so I'm okay through this TikTok ban. But at the same time, like that was my favorite hobby aside from filmmaking, and podcasting. Podcasting is I also have created and produced podcasts as well as like I know the both sides of it, like the booking and the being a guest, and they're both completely different.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I have a lot of respect for people like you that do this because it's content, and this is how you get to know a lot of your favorite people. I go online and I look for Reggie Watts podcasts. I try to find people that I'm inspired by, and I want to hear their thoughts. So it's a great way to do that. But yeah, this has been a wake up call for a lot of people, myself included, because now I'm looking more into like YouTube and Twitch because of that.
Yeah, of course. And Look, yeah, it's funny you say that because that actually brings us very neatly on to the first question I have for you. So, obviously, like 90% of people today will know you as a TikTok streamer. But obviously, your streaming career goes like a lot longer than that. Like, if I remember correctly, you told me once that you've been streaming for over 15 years. Um,
Yes, yeah,
yeah, very
yes.
long time. So like take us back to the very beginning of that. Like so even further beyond. So like what got you into well we'll keep it with the gaming side of things and
Yeah.
mix it in with the content and how it eventually led to you into streaming.
So in the very beginning, when Justin.tv announced the program for regular people like you and I to be able to stream, this is like, more than a decade ago. Um, I was a filmmaker as a full-time job, right? And certain clients started asking me about that. They were very interested in live streaming, and I didn't know anything about it. Um, so I set up an LLC to be able to sign up for this. And even though I myself wasn't in front of the camera, I did learn everything behind the camera. So I'd learned how to broadcast back in the day, you know, and I would charge for the service because a lot of people just didn't know how to do it, and they
Yeah.
were like, "Hey, I just want to sit down in front of a microphone and be able to stream something and then have the video so they just didn't know it was so new. I was like, this is lucrative, so I got into the business side of it, and yeah, I hosted lots of different podcasts, lots of different, mostly comedians. That's where I started meeting a bunch of local famous comedians, and eventually I went on the road with comedians because I was very interested by their lifestyle. So, yeah, live streaming came before my comedy career, and it came before, like, during, I guess, the filmmaking era as well. So it has deep roots within the way that I see it because I was always like in the background, setting up mics, setting up the cameras towards the stars, and I was just invisible. But I would watch these people with massive communities. Like some of these people would come in with 1 million followers. Some of them had 200,000, 300,000. I would see what was happening. I would see the chat. I would see like, yo, like there is some, even though they had like, let's say they had 1 million followers, like only like 1,000 people would tune in, but that was crazy for the time. I was like, yo, this might be something in the future. This is like the new radio. Um, and so yeah, my entry into it was definitely from that side, but eventually after maybe like 8 years of doing that, I started to. I mean, the clients themselves would tell me like, "Hey, you have all this set up. Why don't you do something for you?" I was like, it kind of. I remember Raymond was one of the ones that asked me that. Raymond Horta, he's a famous Texan comedian. He asked me, you have all these skill sets. Why aren't you building up your brand? And that kind of like blew my mind. Like, yeah, why am I not building my brand? Yeah, yeah, you're right. And so yeah, like around 8 years ago, I started streaming for me. Like, oh, you know what? I should stream my face and create some sort of community around my name just in case this does end up being something huge. And yeah, it was just really hard to start up doing it. So I would do it not full time like I was with TikTok. I was just doing it like on the weekend. Like, hey, whenever I have time, I have a few hours, I would find a popular game that everyone's playing. I would buy it if it was on discount on Steam, and I would stream it. And fast forward, 8 years of that, on top of the initial 7 years doing it, behind the camera like you are, and it eventually led to the character that I've built up today, where it's like a time traveler type of character, and he's on a mission, and it's like there's a storyline that plays, and there's like cinematic videos that I put out whenever certain goals have been met. So I do have this like concept that I saw other streamers like Dr. Disrespect has this like future cyberpunk character, and at the time like maybe a year and a half ago, I noticed this TikTok community, this slash Twitch community, Super Mario 64 speedrunners, and I was like, so I've been watching speedrunning for you know a long time, like since the beginning, since YouTube started being a thing, because that's when speedrunners started uploading proof. Like when YouTube came out, they were like, "Here's proof of my speedrun." Well, back then, like it wasn't as big as it is now, but I was like, maybe I should get into that. Like I've been watching that for decades. Like maybe I could actually be okay at it, and I got into it, and I decided to play a character, and it was kind of like a hit, dude. Like I had a great year in TikTok where like I just didn't believe it. I was like, what is happening? Like how is this a thing? Um Even far as having very loyal community members that wanted me to win, and it was very emotional for me because for 15 years I was just like a shadow in the background, building communities without any merits to my efforts. Right, the stars got all the the attention and everything, so it was pretty cool to see the other side finally. As a tech guy, I was like, "That's cool, dude. The internet, it does sometimes work out, even if it's for just a temporary space of time, like it was for the Super Mario 64 era." But that taste is what I needed to go through the next steps, right? Because like yourself, like I found that the video game is kind of hard to get into
Oh, big time.
in terms of like the higher levels, like to get really really good at it, like top 1%, like it's draining. So I just found out it wasn't my type of game, but the experience was my type of experience. I enjoyed every single community member.
Yeah, and like that's like quite an important thing because like it's less so about what you play. I 100% believe it's less so about what you play and like who is around you, community that you've built, who they are, and like what they mean to you and to them, kind of thing. It's like that's important because it should always be a case where like no matter what you play, it's like a sort of long standing cliche with streamers. It's like no matter what you play, community will be there regardless, and that I think it's just having that sense of community is like such an important thing regardless because it's something that you've created. And what I find most interesting is the fact that you have that behind the scenes experience. That was like your initial sort of like break in into this thing. And like that's
Yeah.
so like that's not like an everyday thing. You don't get like a lot of people who have like kind of seen the ins and outs of it for helping produce other people's content essentially. And you're
Yeah.
you're getting that full insight. And I mean, now that you say that, having seen your own personal setup and the things that you do, it's like it's incredibly evident. And you mentioned your time traveler gimmick, the time traveler gimmick. Like that was like the first time I ever saw any of your streams. Like I rem- I think you were this was during the Super Mario 64 days. And I remember like you put some kind of crazy effects on, and like it was like a timer, like it's unrelated to the speedrun timer, but it was like a timer, and you're like, oh no, something's happening, this, that, and the other, and then you disappeared off the screen, and there was all sorts of like it was so like immersive. I can't really explain it too well. Like my explanation is 100% not going to do it any justice, but like it was so immersive to the point where you'd have almost believed it. And like the fact that you're able to just keep this gimmick going of the time traveler, I just think absolutely just like phenomenal. Like and um so like obviously having that kind of exposure to like all of these kind of all these people, work behind the scenes and stuff. Is that sort of thing you just kind of get these like creative ideas from seeing other people's work in action kind of thing?
I'll say this. That's one of the best questions I've ever had as a content creator, and I appreciate the way you described it, because I always love to hear the way people first encountered the stream, because that's the most important thing. Like the first impression that a stranger has on your stream will almost be permanent
Yeah.
if you do it right. If you do it right, like um yes, to say it very plainly, to answer it, yes, I am inspired by other streamers and other content creators, and I'm that millennial YouTube kid that grew up watching nobodies become stars on YouTube. Like I was there during the Ray William Johnson era. I was there when you can actually have 5 stars on the video or 1 star. Like I
Oh
went through it
God,
all.
remember
Yeah,
that?
I went through. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So
Holy
like
shit!
I was also there. I'll say this. I'll input this so that it makes even more sense to people that might be asking like how is because that's one of the things people ask, like, how are you so good with technology? I'm like, it's because when I was 6, my I lived in a city called Mission, Texas, and my uncle was like 5 minutes away, and he was a computer lab engineer. Like he ran like a computer business. And so back in the day, that was really hard to. It was really expensive to get like a computer that's connected to the internet with monthly subscription. You had to like get these discs back in the day. People would collect the AOL because you could get free minutes of the web search and everything. But yeah, like I went through the actual transition from analog to digital. So I remember 8 tracks. I remember VHS. I used them. I remember using floppy disks in school, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, this technological singularity occurred, and all of a sudden, like, everything was changing. Everything was going online. Everything was going digital. And I, as a kid, as a six-year old, 7-year old, I was conscious enough to be like, this is a huge deal. It's life's about to change. And so I got really obsessed with technology very early on, where I was surfing the web during the early 2000s, where every website was like full of animations and every website was unique and it had theme songs when you go on them. And like, it was just such a different such a different internet back then. It had a lot more personality, where now it's more generalized and like it's very like mainstreamed. And to save money, to get, I understand why it had to evolve like that. But yeah, part of me, maybe the kid inside of me, misses the way the internet used to be, where like every website was like an adventure.
Yep.
You'd click on something and then an animation happened, and all of a sudden you were on the next layer of the website. And like the Nickelodeon website was such an interesting website back then. You could watch the iCarly streams, because she was the world's first, right, streamer,
Yeah, of
like, in a way.
course. Yeah.
So you could watch iCarly and it was pretty cool. That's where I saw my first experience. The iCarly thing, I was like, this is the future. People are gonna be able to stream their own personalities. And I kind of saw that this was going to happen one day when I was like 10 years old. I was watching the internet unfold, and I'm like, this YouTube thing is gonna be huge. This internet thing is not going away. And I just became obsessed with it ever since. So part of the character that I got inspired by is the history of all the initial YouTubers that I used to watch, right? In combination with like modern streamers like Dr. Disrespect, or even people, local people that I've seen, friends of mine that are also streamers. They've inspired me as well. So yeah, it's a combination of a lot of different things, but I think mostly the love of technology is the why I decided to be like that time traveler
Yep.
character. And I think I remember that exact stream that you're talking about, where I had a cinematic moment unfold. And I practice acting as well, because I used to filmmake. And part of directing is knowing how to act, or at least uh, having some experience to be able to guide the actor to the result that you
Yep.
want. So I took some classes in college for acting. And yeah, like sometimes during my characters like monologues, I do go into the character and I imagine, like, what if I was that character? And that character is stuck in a time loop in the year 2055. And he's gotten tired of everything, because everything plays out the same to him. So the people around him are not even real, because they're like it's like he realized that all the characters were like NPC characters that have dialogues, like, oh, everyone says the same thing every day. Like, you eventually disconnect from everybody, and he's just trying to fix it to where like time goes forward again. And so you're watching this character. um Supposedly the story goes, for those of you that don't know, the story goes, there is 10 curses that this character has to undo to fix the time loop, and he's fixed one of them, which was the Harambe curse. So ever since Harambe died, that started happening, and so I use these internet memes to kind of connect the character into like I'm forcing myself to become a meme by like adapting other memes into my setup, right? And yeah, like you're watching this character play. Apparently, he has to play video games. Like the character doesn't even really like the video games. He's just kind of has to do this thing. He's working for a corporation that he owns, but that stockholders bought too much of the stocks because he's broke, and he's lost power of his own or corporation, and he's trying to gain back power of his own corporation while fixing the time loop. And like, there's just like a lot of moving parts to the character, but one day I sat down, and I urge all streamers to do this as well. One day I sat down, and the process was, imagine you're a viewer of your own stream, and you scrolled into yourself, and then watch a stream you made, right? And write down what you're feeling, like as if you were not yourself. Like, are you bored? Like, do you like the presentation? What is there interactiveness happening? And so I did this exercise, and I just sat there for like 2 3 hours editing myself in a way like I need to be more myself, I need to be more authentic, or I need to be more me, and less of what the internet wants me to be. And that's how the character eventually became its own thing. And I appreciate you asking that, because it's hard to explain, and it's good to have it all in one place like this
Yeah.
video to reflect on it later.
No, of course, like because it's such an interesting, unique gimmick, and like I oh God, I love the Harambe curse. Like holy shit, like and the thing the thing I really love about it is the fact that a lot of people say that that was the exact moment that kind of everything in the world kind of just flipped on its head. Like that, I spoke
Yes.
to a lot of people, and they're like, yeah, like I mean, it's like when did things all go? When did things all go wrong? It's like
The
Harambe,
Harambe
just
incident.
Harambe, you
And you know
know?
what's crazy is that I live 30 minutes away from where that happened.
No way.
Like the where that not where it happened, but where he's from. That
Yeah.
that gorilla was transported from Brownsville, which is 30 minutes away from me, to that Cincinnati zoo, and he wasn't supposed to be there forever. They just transferred him so they could mate and stuff like that, and he was
Oh.
supposed to come back. So it was a big deal for our local community. We're like we were fucking mad, bro. Like, we were mad. So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was a bigger deal over here than the internet, but to the internet, they took our pain and they made it into a meme, and I'm glad they did, because it became viral, and it was the first time our local community went viral for anything.
Oh
So, it
yeah.
was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to ride that
So
wave with a bunch of creators.
is that then where Dick's Eye for Harambe? Is that where that came from, or was that something
Is that
else?
the, what? I'm sorry, what was
The
the
Dick
hashtag you said?
Dick's out for Harambe.
Wait. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that
Oh
hashtag,
wow,
but
because that was like
the
that was the big meme whenever like
but
yeah.
perhaps, yeah, perhaps it evolved into that. But but Arambe himself, yeah, is from Brownsville, yeah, like a city nearby. So
That's
he
insane.
was born here. He was born. He's he was a local.
That is
He was
so
our local gorilla.
and
And
oh sorry, go on.
it did blow up. You're right. It did blow up to where it became an internet thing where people would always reference it. Like even during the pandemic, like this all began with Harambe. People
Exactly, yeah. Uh,
Yeah, people were like, "I told you the Harambe thing."
and do you know actually it's funny you say that now. Like we can take this one like one step deeper as well. There is a streamer who you and I both know, who I'm not going to say who they are live here, but you and I both know this person, and they used to actually work in that same zoo.
Oh my
I
god.
believe they worked in the gorilla enclosure as well.
Yes.
I'm not gonna say who I'm not
Yes,
gonna
I
say
think
who it
I
is,
know what
but I
you're
think you
talking
might know
about.
it. Yeah, exactly. And I always like to blame this person
and
for having shot
and he
Harambe.
actually that person created a character in my own universe.
Oh.
So he liked what I was doing so much because like
Ooh.
I'll input this, Andy. I'll ask a question to you. Did you ever watch wrestling during the 90s when it was like Monday Night Raw versus ECW and like you had
So
SmackDown and everything
I
like that?
got into it like just a little bit after, but like I'm more than familiar.
So yeah, you're familiar with Vince McMahon's like marketing tactics. He
Hmm.
was the world's original um clip farmer. Like he would farm clips
Oh yeah.
using WWE events, right?
Oh
To
yeah.
to get more fame for everybody in his corporation. Well, I saw a lot of that like during this one there was this one year in television that's still considered the world's best time for television. And it was that year where Vince McMahon would constantly fight back and forth with this other competing wrestling brand that would air the same hour that Vince McMahon aired his Monday Night Raw. And so they would constantly like it was like this rivalry Apple with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates Microsoft that kind of inspired both of them to keep freaking jumping up in levels of content to the point where like at some point like Stone Cold was throwing beer with a freaking fire hose at Vince McMahon. It was crazy. I was like, what is happening here? How is this still wrestling? Like it exploded beyond what I initially thought the series was going to go through. So I saw that and I was like, how do you replicate that in a streamer world?
Yeah.
And so that's where the character came in because I'm like, then I could, for example, I started using the character to basically hijack my way into communities,
Yeah.
and I've done it multiple times. So like, the first time I saw Ted Feds, he didn't know me, and I didn't know anybody in his community, but I would just sit there and periodically leave time travel like things that a time traveler would say. That was the whole concept. Like, I'm just gonna comment as if I'm a time traveler. So I would try to even guess when they're gonna PB, and sometimes I would get it right. I'd be like, "Oh, congratulations on the PB," and then he would get a PB, and people were like, "What the heck? How did he like? How did he?" But it's just from experience of watching
Yeah.
speedrunners and knowing when they're locked in, knowing when like, oh, he's gonna get this, like knowing his weaknesses and where he fails, and after he passed his weaknesses, and I mean, once Ted is beyond shifting sandland, he's gonna and he's above his PB, he's gonna lock in, and
Yep.
so like I knew like he was gonna PB during that moment, stuff like that. I would not just to Ted, but to like other bigger streamers as well. But I took what I learned from interacting with big streamers as a guy behind the scenes to try to get a job and use that marketing skill set as a streamer to just get attention of other streamers. So that plays a big role, don't you think, in like collaborating? I think it's a big way to grow multiple communities.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like, it's definitely important to, if you're going to like, collab with somebody, to know them on some level, whether, it be what they're into, what they're like, what's even to a degree their community as well. Like,
Yeah.
there has to be that kind of initial sort of chemistry, like not a case of I'm going to go into this because I think this will be good for my brand, but more I'm going
No,
into this
yeah,
because like
I
I
agree.
like the idea of this. I think this is good. It has to like mean something as well. But I do want to ask as well about another one of your more recent sort of gimmicks, and that's your use of I guess the best way to describe it would be like a motion capture like avatar type thing.
All right. So okay, I'll explain why I was using that. So my GPU that I was using before my recent upgrade was from 2016. That was the last time I bought a GPU, and it was just failing me for the things that I wanted to do with this new character. Like you've seen the
Oh,
stream. I use a green screen. I use it all. I use the green screen, the heart rate monitor.
yep.
The only thing I'm missing really is the eye tracker. But I don't. You don't really need to use that for every game. Just like FPS shooters, so people can see like the way that you're tracking people and all that.
Yep.
But yeah, like yeah, it's at some point I realized I need to upgrade. So while I was waiting for the GPU to arrive, while my computer was failing, I couldn't capture camera. Like for some reason, the camera feed just wasn't working anymore. So I found a way to improvise and still keep streaming while I'm waiting for like me to save up money to get the new GPU. So I was yeah, for a couple, like maybe a month or two, I was using this what's called a face rig, right? Where it captures the movements of your mouth and your eyes and kind of your expression, your eyebrows, based on your camera. It creates like the plot points that you see people
Yeah.
wear like in big studios, and it's just like simulates that. And I thought that was pretty cool to use. Meanwhile, I fixed the situation with my GPU, but it ended up being something I liked because usually, as a streamer, right before you go live, you have to get ready. I tend to shower. Like I like to feel good. I like to, look good, and because it makes me less self-conscious. So being able to just like in one click, like even though your hair is messy, like let's say it's super cold, you don't really want to get ready and you're wearing your pajamas and you're all freaking ragged out. Having that face rig as a clutch to still go and stream even though you don't feel good was pretty good. I enjoyed that. But I also noticed that some people were saying that they missed my face because you can make certain expressions with your face that are funny that you can't do with that rig, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh, of
So I
course.
eventually switched back. I was just experimenting, and it was more like a temporary thing while I got the new GPU.
Yeah, but it was still kind of cool. Like, I mean, especially from a TikTok perspective, from like a short form content, like, um,
Yeah,
people don't necessarily go on to TikTok to watch live streams, but it's something that catches their eye is what makes them stay, particularly for the likes of short form platforms like that. Um, 'Cause I remember there was definitely like a few days I was like scrolling through as you do, and all of a sudden you see, I was like, holy fuck, Louie's a raccoon. What's going on here? You
what
know,
the hell is going
yeah,
on?
exactly. You know, and like it's kind of cool, and the fact that
You're
a
you're
lot of
right.
people would have probably just been like, oh, I can't do this. I'm just going to be on no camera for
Uh,
the next while. But the fact that you're able to just be like, well, here's an alternative for a while, and
yeah,
again, it's
and I
just
would explain
another
to them
thing that kind of stuck as well for a bit.
because some people liked it, right, and some people didn't. And I would explain to the people that didn't, like, hey guys, this is just a temporary thing, so that I can continue streaming. Because I had, like at some point I had like 30 consistent viewers whenever I was streaming every day when I was doing it full time. And yeah, like I just didn't want to stop that because I've heard stories of people say like I took a break and now I can barely get one viewer. Like I just didn't want to go through that, so I was like I'm gonna continue streaming. And so yeah, but you're right. I did get followers that followed me just because of that. They're like, and they told me in the comments like followed because you were talking raccoon. Like I'm like okay. So yeah, I did notice that like when you're playing a game that doesn't necessarily have communities, like let's say they're like you're playing a dead game, like a game that was made 20 years ago, like a retro game, because I play a lot of different retro. I at least I used to play a lot of different retro games um, during that time. So it would be good to use that as a way to like keep the attention from people that would scroll away from an old game usually. So you're
Yeah.
right, you're right. It still can be useful even today, even though I have my GPU working. I still think about it. Like sometimes like I feel like using it, but I prefer to have that face to face connection with my regulars. But you're right, it could still be used as a way to gain followers temporarily and then switch back and forth. So that's an idea out there for people. Yeah, just in case you want to try it out, it's called Face Rig on or it's called Animes on Steam. It's a free to use app, and you have a bunch of free avatars you can use. Those are the ones I was using. So yeah, anyone that wants to try it out, it's called Animes.
Nice, awesome, man. That's
A
yeah, because again,
A
it's
N
just oh,
and I'll
sorry, go on.
spell it out for people.
Oh yeah,
ANIMAZE.
isn't yeah, because like it's just another way to kind of like stand out and just sort of like be different than the rest. See you mentioning about your playing old games and stuff. So I remember specifically that you have like quite an amazing setup, like to the point where everything that you did play at the time was always on console. I remember this might have been just after maybe sort of like maybe just after Mario 64. Like I
Yeah,
think
no,
you
you're right.
started playing something
It's
on
how I
3DS.
I slowly transitioned my main viewers from Super Mario 64 to like every day you would tune in and you didn't know what I was doing. You're like, oh, so it became a
Hmm.
thing. It became like, let's see what game Louis playing today. And it was like a lottery thing. Like sometimes the games would be really funny because I go into these characters. I have this voice I use because I used to do voice acting too. So I have this voice that I use for a cartoon character a long time ago, like maybe 12 years ago. I worked on a project and I created this character. I'm about to do it for like 10 seconds. And it kind of sounds like this. Oh, you motherfucker, you stupid. And it has this like weird, like just sound to it. It's an odd character. And I brought it back from the dead and people loved it. They were like, can you do more of the voices? And people would like ask me, like, they would type in, I'm dead. I literally just spilled all my coffee on myself and I don't care. That was funny. I'm changing shirts. And I was just like, people were finally embracing all these ideas that I had when I was on the road as a comedian. I had these characters that would not necessarily do well on stage. Some of them would bomb. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, am I dumb? Like, I thought I studied comedy enough to try to understand. But what was happening is that um, the location, because of the way comedy works, whenever you go on the road with someone, you're gonna go into their community and they attract a certain type of person
Yeah.
because they have, if they have the fame and you're going to that show, that's how they're able to get people on the seats and pay everybody. So you're always adjusting your self to someone else's community, and everyone's community is kind of synchronized with their personality if they're authentic. So I realized, oh, if you want to make it as a comedian, you have to be like, you have to have an audience, like you have to have a big audience, and they'll get you. And so I realized like I should probably create an audience. So I went into streaming, and I use a lot of the elements that I learned from these comedians. And I'll say a little bit. I'll say a few names that I've interacted with in the industry, so like how much I was able to pick up on
Yeah.
these giants. I was on their shoulders for a bit. People like Joe Rogan. I interacted with Jamie,
No
and
way.
Jamie is like the world's best podcaster in terms of like the footprints and who they are. And I would interact with him in email, and he would respond to me because I was talking to other comedians that were in the space, and I felt so cool, dude. I was like, "Yo, is this happening? Like, what is going on?" Like, here's another example. And you can fact check all
No,
this.
of
Like
course.
you can talk to the people in the industry. Like here's another famous friend of mine. He has 1.1 million followers on TikTok and a bunch of more on other applications. His name is he goes by Polar Bear. Like his username on TikTok is like John Polar Bear. But he, he's he's a phenomenal comedian, and he broke out on TikTok through skits, right? And it turns out this dude used to work for Alex Jones. He was his
Shit.
videographer, and I became friends with him. And I would ask him all these things like, "So, did you ever see anything like is Alex Jones really that?" And he's like, "No, dude, he really is like that." Like every time he was like, "He's not a character." I was like, "It's not a character. No, no, no. He even when we're offline, he's still talking and he's still researching and he's on his computer and he's talking to journalists." I'm like, it's not a character. It blew my mind when he told me that Alex Jones wasn't a character. Like, there's people like that, you know?
Yeah.
And one time I made a meme, Andy, and I thought that Alex Jones would love it. And I emailed it to John Gonzalez, the person I'm talking about. And uh, John emailed it to Alex Jones, and Alex Jones had my meme in front of 8 million people.
No
And I
way.
sat there watching the show. Yeah, I can
That's so cool.
I can even get John to confirm this someday when we're if we ever have like guests coming back. I can even bring on John to confirm this story. He Alex Jones liked the meme and he had it aired on his show. As you know, he has like a I won't even say the name because it can cause issues, but he has like a show and
Hmm.
everything that he used to do. Um, but yeah, this was one of my first times that I like felt like I was breaking through the internet back then, and I was like, dude, even though it's just a meme on a big show like that, I was like, I made it happen in a way, like the
Yeah.
marketing that went behind it, the friendships you have to make, and then you can leverage those friendships in an authentic way. And in other words, like if I have someone that can help John Gonzalez, I can say like, hey, I have this friend that's looking for that, and he would love to. Let me get him on the phone. And using that, you can help people because that's what networking should be. It should
Yeah.
never be about how can I extract. No, 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 no. That's not how it works. It's how can I help? How can I give? And if
Yeah.
you look at marketing like that, if you look at it like that, people will give you opportunities back without even you wanting. They'll just out of their own heart, they'll be like, "Damn, this guy got me this. He made this video for me, and instead of charging me 5,000, he just gave it to me. I want to have him on my podcast." And all of a sudden, you're on a podcast with a million followers, where usually you would have to be someone famous or someone really big, but you made a friend and he's famous, and so like for a long time I've felt like all my friends are doing all these crazy things and I didn't have a community. So that's why I started my journey on TikTok. And it's been awesome. But I still stand on the shoulder of these giants that are teaching me all these things like John or Raymond and uh, Jamie with Joe Rogan, and I'm learning so much, and it makes me excited because you and I are part of the next generation.
Yeah.
We're gonna be the ones in those seats later, like, and when everyone grows old, and like, that's just the way that the internet works. So everyone will get their time on the limelight, and even though it hasn't been mine and it hasn't been yours, someday it will. Even you listening to this right now, and you're an aspiring streamer or content creator. If you keep your craft, if you put in the 10,000 hours, you too can be that person that you look up to for someone else in the future. You just have to keep that dream alive.
100%. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's kind of like a big reason why I do this, like on the platform that I do. Like I do this live, so people who don't watch podcasts or don't listen to podcasts can see it. They can get to know people who there's some form of association regardless. So like obviously we both stream, people know us through stream and people know us mutually, right? They'll know us separately, some more than others, and I kind of think it's a good way to kind of like for the communities to kind of grow, mix, meet new people, things like that, and just get to know people. I mean, people spend a lot of time watching streamers. Why not get to know them a little bit more? That's the kind of the whole premise for me personally. I think like you know, I mean, I obviously I get a lot out of it, but it's like what I want to get out of it is what a person being interviewed gets out of it, or anything else like that. So 100% agree. Like, and but surely though,
Yeah.
like in the position that you've been in, there would have had to have been like a lot of personality that sort of would have helped carry you into that. Because say if you were just behind the stage, you did your job, went home, that probably would have just been that probably would have been that, right? But obviously
Right.
you kind of had to show like your investment, your personal investment into this, just to be like, it's like a passion, isn't it? Really, it's like this is why I love this. That is why I love doing this. You're willing to learn from these people just by helping, by doing things like that, and like,
Yeah, doing things for free is the best way to network, because when you at the moment that you bring up price or that you bring up business, you've now made that person into like a transactionary relationship rather than a friend. And
hundred
a
percent.
friend is always more powerful than a client. Remember that.
Oh, for
A
sure.
friend is always more powerful than a client. And so yeah, always try to befriend people first. And some people won't like you. I guess those are the best people to do business with, because you know for sure like you're not gonna be their friends. Like, okay, man, what's the price? Like, you can ask them, because you can tell when people don't want to be friends, and
Oh
you
yeah,
can tell when they want to do business. So I guess go that way. But I absolutely agree with you. And you were asking earlier about my setup. My setup is basically an accumulation of things that I've asked for in my like contract with clients. So like anytime, like one time there was a client that wanted me to run a podcast, and he owned a casino. And by the way, I work at casinos as a card dealer for poker for Texas Hold'em. So I have a lot of experience in that industry too. It's my current job right now. I'm not a filmmaker anymore. I'm not doing the comedy anymore. I'm working at a casino and streaming. So I live a donation based lifestyle, because you don't get paid as a dealer, but everyone wins every hand, and everyone, usually the etiquette is to tip at least
yeah.
$5 or less. So it's a donation based lifestyle over there too. But before I tangent into that, like I learned from that client that it's okay to ask for things because he was like, "What do you need?" Because I kept saying no. I was like, "I just can't do what you're asking me to do," and he's like, "Why not?" Because he has a bunch of money and I'm broke, so I don't see it the way he sees it. And he taught me like you could be broke and just have good networking skills and have a good skill set, and someone more powerful with more money can fill in everything else. So he told me like, why can't you do this? And I'm like, I need this computer, I need this. You're asking me to do this. I need a SSD. I don't have that. And like I made a list of everything I needed, and the next day like he had everything. He's like, this is all yours, and I was like, oh okay. And he was like, you're a good guy. You're honest. You tell me the truth, because I would tell him the truth. So like a powerful people, although they do love hanging out with yes men, truly they want friends that are honest.
Yeah.
So like this guy had just renovated this whole casino, and he kept asking everybody, "Hey, what do you think?" And everyone was saying like, "It looks good. Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, great, and all this." But then when he asked me, I said, I think the floor needs to be a little bit different, but that's just me. Like I'm just everything else looks good, but I think the floor looks a little bit old." And he was like, "That's what I was thinking." Yeah, he was like, that's what I keep telling my wife." And I'm like, "Well, but I was like, oh, I don't want to intervene. I was just trying to be honest." And then the wife was like, "No, yeah, it's true. I've just trying. I don't think we can afford it right now, but the floor does need." And then like the family saw that I was an honest person, I guess, and they wanted to do business just from that one interaction. Sometimes just being honest with people, even though you think they might not want to hear it, that might be what they're looking for. And yeah, he heard that I was a dealer, and anyways, like all of a sudden I'm making his podcast, and I asked for specific things like this computer that I still have, and then from then on, every time that I made a contract and I didn't have something, I would just put it on the list. I'm like, oh, if they because they would always negotiate down in price, so I would say that's fine, but I need this equipment
Yeah.
since I don't have that funds. And so I learned to just make people buy the things I don't have. If they have the money and they want me to do something and I can't do it, and they really want me to do it, then I'll tell them why. I'm like, I can't do it because of this.
Yeah.
And then they usually, if they're good people too, and you surround yourself with good people, they will help you out too. And so yeah, like I started leveraging my skill set to getting these things slowly. And of course, I also save up some of my own money. Like I bought the GPU myself, I bought the monitors myself, but most of everything else, like the podcast sound card that I use from Yamaha, or this Joe Rogan microphone, or this boom arm, like a lot of the things were just things that I asked for in a contract. So I
Yeah.
suggest people do that.
And I think it's a fair
Well,
thing to do as well because like the first time you did it, like you say, it was like, I can't do this because XYZ, I don't have these things. And the offer was, okay, well, I'll give you it. It's fine.
yeah,
It's that's not you
yeah,
asking for it. That's just you, like you say, being honest, saying,
being
I can't do it
honest,
because I
yeah.
don't have these things. And I think, when it comes to these types of like business negotiations, there's always going to be a provision where there there's room for it. Like, the people who are doing the negotiations are going to be willing to just be like, okay, we have X amount put aside, um, plus assets, for example, like, your equipment and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
So
and he
it's
definitely wrote that off. He told me I could write that off. It's a business expense. I was like, I didn't understand then. I didn't have my own business set up like that. But you're right.
yeah, like, and that's the thing. People are always kind of willing to make an investment to get a job done right, and by the right person. Like, otherwise, it's like they'd be out a hell of a lot more. So there's like obviously like an element of trust that goes into it as well, which is important because it kind of helps you, like, as a sort of like a contractor,
Yeah,
develop your portfolio, your skills, everything, and kind of allow bigger projects to kind of come your way. And like you say, build up your streaming setup to be
build
what
up
it
your
is.
build up your tool set. Yeah, like my setup has been 15 years in the making. Like honestly, when I first started, I was using a MacBook, a Pro, like from the time, and like an Elgato. I still have the Elgato thing. It was like the old one, the HD60, like for the Xbox 360 and stuff,
Yeah.
or the original Xbox. Like You could use it for other things too with adapters, but um yeah, like the biggest thing was early on, and as I'm sure you also encountered this, like you just feel as a streamer, you feel like, but like how am I going to make it when I have this like shitty setup, and you're starting up with like whatever camera it is or whatever, right? And it's just about like getting over that and realizing like every time you stream you're going to learn something,
Yeah.
even if it's zero viewers at first. You're gonna learn, like when you listen to yourself again, you're gonna hear like, oh, the mic does, I can't even hear myself. Okay, now you're learning how to adjust your volumes.
Oh, dude,
And in the next
100%.
stream you might hear it again, and then you're like, well, now the gameplay's too loud, and now you're adjusting that volume. You know what I'm saying? There's a
100%.
process to
Oh
streaming where
man.
you finally have it how you want. Like when you're finally like at the 30th or 40th stream where you're like, I like the way it's going. Like I added my chat, I added TTS, and as you're slowly building and understanding all the tools that are available for streaming, you start to realize like, oh, it's a multi-year thing. Like
Yeah.
it takes time to really get into it. But you're like you were saying earlier, like if you do it right and you're yourself and you're authentic, yeah, even if you're playing a character or not, because I'm not always in character, but when I'm playing certain games, I get into character and in and out of it, and the person understands that. They know that you're entertaining. They're not gonna be like, "Oh, you're fake for making that character." Nah, dude.
Oh,
You're yourself, and you can create these characters too. And that's something that I always tell my friends. Like, whenever it comes to marketing, I'll do anything. I'll try anything. So
yeah.
I'll sometimes I see these trends on TikTok that are so cringy. I'm like, I'm gonna do it.
Oh,
People are
for
getting
sure.
millions of views. I don't care, dude. Like, I'll do it. I'll do whatever it is so that if my video has a chance of blowing up and getting an audience, so that they can see my real authentic self, I'll be inauthentic in a marketing video. I'll play a character that I'm not usually in real life. But there's a balance to that. Like as long as you don't lose yourself in that, like you mentioned in in the beginning about being yourself, I think there is room for experimentation. What do you think about that, Andy, when it comes to marketing as a streamer?
100%. Like, I mean, personally, I would say be yourself. Like, be yourself, but be it in a way where, like, you know, I think relatability is a hugely important thing. Especially if you're trying to sell something, because
Yeah,
okay,
right.
so okay, well, let me ask you this, right? How many videos do you see on TikTok? Like, usually promoting something on TikTok Shop, and it's always the same fucking dumbass captions on it. Oh, someone from
Yeah, yeah.
TikTok Shop is getting fired for this. Oh my god, I did this and this. It's like fuck off. Like,
Sorry for all the sellers. This is 40% off now. Yeah, yeah. Sorry
you
for
know,
all the
like
buyers earlier this
you,
week. You're like, oh,
yeah, exactly. You just know that they're fucking bullshit, man. Like, so I
yeah.
think, but the thing is, like, if you're putting like your own spin on it, like you say, if you have to develop a
Like if you
new
make a
character,
satire video on it,
yeah, yeah.
like make
So,
fun of it.
well, I can give you an example of that. So, Freeman Gaming. Not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a very good content
Yes,
creator.
yes, I am. Yes.
He did a load of them. So there was like a load of ones that were going viral at the time in his sort of space. He's in like the sort of fitness space as well as gaming.
Yeah.
He There was a load going for apple cider vinegar gummies, and people were saying they promote this kind of health, this, that, and the other. And like he's a qualified personal trainer, and he makes these videos being like, "Don't fucking buy these. These are dumb as shit." But he has the TikTok shop link at the bottom of the video, so he is doing a paid promotional video for TikTok
Making fun
shop
of it.
but he's basically like, don't buy these, but if you do, you know where to fucking click. That. So I think though
That's brilliant.
and
That's
like
brilliant.
90% of these sellers, like in the sort of TikTok marketing space, they're following a script, but the way that they're
Yep.
making their videos is where like the relatability comes from. So they've got like it's just like they've got their phone pointing to their face as if they just made it in their car, no fancy setup or tech or anything like that. But it's it these motherfuckers can't act. You know what I mean? They can't even make it sound
Yeah.
convincing. So
Yeah.
like it's the sort of thing.
Oh,
If you put
I
your
have
own,
this product here. And like they even have like a fake voice going on and
yeah,
everything. Yeah, you're like,
exactly.
what's going?
So if you have to make like a character for it, fine, yeah, 100%. Because like if it's any way, I know you talked about like if you have to be like inauthentic in a way, but if you're still doing it, that's kind of like a side tangent of who you are as a streamer slash
Yeah,
person.
and that's a perfect example, like the Freeman example. Like obviously he's telling people not to buy it. Um, but the inauthentic part is him having the link.
Well, yeah, of
And
course,
so like
absolutely,
there's
yeah,
always, and the internet, like, yeah, when you're doing something that's trendy, right? Automatically you're labeled as inauthentic because it's not original.
oh yeah,
So what I was saying by that is like sometimes you have to participate in trends, um, disregarding what anyone thinks about it because you're trying to tap into a community that might like the
yeah,
authentic sides of you, the real sides, like when you're not marketing and you're not trying to sell anything, when you're just sitting on your stream and you're having fun playing that game and you're being you. You know, they found you through that marketing video, and then they find you, the real you. And
yeah,
I think that's the way that you should use the internet in terms of like apps like TikTok. Like on YouTube, I would not post stuff like that. I would not post. I would probably post no brain rot at all. I would on YouTube. I would probably focus on documentary styled videos and longer content form. You know what I mean? But because
yeah,
TikTok is what it is, I'm like I'm gonna adapt to it. Same thing with like adapting to Twitter. Like I would probably never post as many videos over there, but I would probably tweet a lot more of my thoughts. And
hmm,
so like yeah, you have to like kind of mold yourself to the communities and what they expect, the content type from each app. And on TikTok, like you see a lot of that. And so I would be like, how are these people like getting millions of views and they're doing these stupid things? I'm like, huh, like I wonder how to tap into that, and I wonder if they can find me, like find the real me through these weird trends. And so yeah, sometimes I think participating in those and finding your own way to make it authentic for you is the best thing.
yep.
Like finding a way to make fun of it, finding like a new angle where it's authentic. Like I think that's cool. That's the way to go. So you're not cringe.
Yeah, exactly. Because something
You want to
I,
make fun of the cringe
yeah,
and ride the cringe
100%.
wave.
Because I understand it, especially from the perspective where whenever you're live on TikTok, it tells you who has joined and also who is joined based on watching your videos. So someone will have joined from a video. Like for those who don't know TikTok, you be scrolling through, you'll see somebody live on a video that they've posted, and you click on their live button and go into their live stream from your for you page, right? Um, and TikTok tells you that when you're live. Like, so it's the sort of thing just to feed into what you're saying, Louis. It's like you could post one of these cringe, sort of tongue-in-cheek marketing videos for TikTok Shop, for example, and
Yeah,
you could be live at the same time. Someone sees that and they think, "Oh, what the fuck's this?" And they click into the live, and you're the exact opposite of the person that is
exactly.
in that, and it kind of is like, oh, okay, this guy's
Yes.
not all that bad. It's like a
Yeah,
weird like rage baity type thing, and like
it
and
is.
I do
It
love this
is.
sort of the use of characters, especially like within this sort of thing, because like we were talking about before, TikTok being short form content, it's like sort of stop and scroll type sort of thing. So you need that like eye catching thing to get somebody to stop scrolling to see if they stay, and if they stay, they stay. If they
It's
don't, they
true.
don't. But it's like character, like I mean, I think that's kind of a part of where I've like kind of not struggled but um, haven't really fulfilled as much potential possibly because like I like to think of myself as very creative. I have a lot of good ideas and stuff like that. But in terms of characters, I've tried it
It's not
once.
needed though.
No, hundred
I'll say
percent.
this.
Like
It's not needed. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like I played content. Well, I played that one game with you.
mm-hmm.
What was it called? Content
Content
warning.
warning.
And
Yeah,
I thought, yeah, I thought you were hilarious. And
thanks,
even
man.
though you might not consider them characters, like you
Oh,
did play characters. Like
oh,
you had
100%.
this one announcer voice where you were like shifting into the, and like so that's what I'm talking about.
Oh
You're
yeah,
not being in a, you weren't being someone else,
no.
but you were you in a state of like almost childlike wonder where
Oh
you're
yeah.
playing with the narrative that we were constructing together,
Oh,
and it was awesome.
yeah. I fucking love that
So
game. So
I
fun.
think you do it in a way, but in a way that's almost like blended in so well that it is you. And sometimes like uh I was gonna say like there's four main ways to go viral on the internet. One way is luck, like the Hawk Tuah girl, or like just complete luck. Another way is mastering a skill set so well that you command the attention, like, oh, this guy's the best at that. Another way is money, paying for it and promoting yourself with a lot of money. I think Post Malone invested $5,000 into his first song, and that's how he went viral on YouTube with $5,000. So you sometimes can invest into it, and you can get lucky. They can mix. The fourth one is the one we're talking about, being so authentic that you're almost bizarre.
Yeah.
Having a character that's so out there that it's almost like its own entertainment, where you in your mind you're like, there's no way this is a person. And that's what I'm talking about, like hijacking that wonder and curiosity of like, is this person like this? Because you're watching the video, right? And you're like, there's no way he's like, you click on the video and it's a normal person, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, it was a clickbait
Yeah.
to get me to watch, and all of a sudden you're laughing at the actual thing that the real person is doing, and you're like, oh, like all of a sudden you forget about the marketing thing. You're like, this guy got me, I'm laughing, I'm in his stream laughing. And that's what it's about. You're having a good time,
Yeah.
even though you got tricked into it, because that's how you got to do it now. Like there's multiple ways. Like if you don't get lucky, if you're not masterfully playing the video game in the 1%, or if you don't have the money, then you have to do the fourth thing, which is being yourself so well that you can uh, leave temporarily this personality that you have and adapt something else to sort of have fun with it, like you did with the announcer voice
Mhm.
or like the other characters that you kind of played. But I see what you're talking about in terms of like you've maybe staying in a character is
Yeah.
hard, because I'm no longer use the time traveler character as much because it's difficult to stay in something like that and feel authentic. So I
Yeah.
agree what you were saying in terms of like permanently doing something like that. It's kind of difficult. I don't know how Doctor Disrespect does it, where he's constantly in character, or like these streamers that are famous for staying in character, right? Like, what's up, brother? Like, that's obviously a character too. And so you see all these characters that people play, and you're, of course, it's like, how can I do that? But what I'm saying is more like, I think that they're being themselves, but they crank the volume of
Yeah.
their personality to like 11, where we're always staying between 1 and 6, right, in normal day-to-day life. But they're cranking it up to 11, and so like I saw you crank it up to like 10, 11 that one game, and I was like, this is funny. Like you. So yeah, I guess it depends on the perspective. And if you crank it up too high, I think that's where it gets cringe. Like if you go like to 15, it's like too loud. People are like,
Oh,
"Whoa, what are you
100%.
doing?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
and
yeah, there's a balance to it.
for sure. And like that's genuinely happened to me before. So like go back 18 months ago to when I started streaming to like my original clips, just like the gameplay stuff. Like compare that to now. The only thing different is the setup that I use. Everything else, scenes, all. That's the only thing different. Me myself talking to the camera, it's been the exact same thing. I did trial, like this was a completely off the cuff thing that I did. So I did a Pokemon stream with Sir T a while back, and like I don't know where it is at the moment, but like I bought like this it was essentially like a balaclava, but it was like a knitted balaclava, but it was Pikachu.
The Pikachu.
Yeah,
Oh my god,
and
yes, dude, I
I
remember the
just
video.
literally threw it. I was just like, this will be funny. I'm gonna wear this on the stream, and everything else just like, for me personally, things kind of have to come naturally rather than like me think about it. Because if I
Yeah,
think about it, it'll just kind of, you know, and then
you overanalyze it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think the
I
moment
I
that that
agree.
happens, that's when it feels forced, and that's when for me it's time to just can it. So like I did that with Sir T. Like I put on this really stupid accent. Like I put the mask on and I was like, "Hey, it's your boy
It's your
Pikachu, the
boy.
rat from the
Yeah.
yellow Pokemons." I said it wong, but you know what I mean.
Yes, it was
Put on this
awesome,
voice
bro.
and talked in that voice for the longest time. And then so I was like, do you know what? People thought that was so funny, and
Bro,
just because it was so
I thought that was
unnatural in the
comedy
moment.
gold.
But
Yeah.
I tried to like make that a bit of a part of the stream sometimes. So like I put it as a channel point redeem, and like somebody redeemed it. I think it was playing like Prince of Persia, and I
And it
can't.
comes in just for a little bit. Just for a little bit, you
Oh,
said, "Nah, I can't."
but yeah, I tried it, and I just was like, this isn't like. I got about maybe 2 minutes in, and I got in
You
my head so quickly about it. I was just like, no, this is forced. This feels absolutely so
And
unnatural.
you know why? It's the transactionary part of it,
Yeah, I
because
think
now
so.
it's like redemption. And so you're right. Like part of like that's why I tried that once too, where like if you reach the goal, I would do something, but I realized the same thing you did. Like I feel like I don't want people to have to pay for the entertainment. It feels wrong inside.
Yeah.
Inside it feels like no, they should get this for free but randomly when I want.
Yeah.
Like I should have the creative choice, not during the I'm doing something important like I'm speedrunning and all of a sudden I have to kick into a character. That would throw me off too, and I would be like, damn, I feel inauthentic. So I stopped doing stuff like that too, and instead I just told people like I have these characters, and if I'm feeling it, like they'll come out, but I can't have it like that where people can redeem and stuff like that. I tried that too, Andy, and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden they're choosing when you're these things, and then it doesn't feel the same because it's not even as funny. Because the reason it's funny is because they didn't see it coming,
Yeah.
and so when they see it coming and they are the ones to do it, also I bet doesn't feel the same for them too. They feel like they probably want that surprise, and I think that's where it should be. That's where it should stay. Whenever you feel it, like the time traveler character for me came like randomly too. Like it came out of nowhere where someone mentioned the time travel stuff in the comments, and I just played on the comment
Yeah.
because I had said something that was gonna happen, and then it happened in the video game, and then someone was like, "It's almost like he's a time traveler," and then I was like, "I am." I was like, "I am a time traveler," and they were like, "Oh, knew it!" Like a stranger, right? A stranger came in and said that I am a time traveler.
Yeah.
And I started like I busted out the items. I was like, I have this, I have this, and I started showing like just providing evidence. So I understand what you're saying about like it has to be in the spirit of the moment. I agree with that, or else
Yeah.
it's not authentic.
Yeah, definitely. Like as soon as it felt forced for me, I was just like, no, I am
Nah.
canon this thing. And I think as well, like, in terms of like um in terms of humor and kind of like playing a part, I definitely think are different kind of ways that different people do. For me personally, like for example, like voices would be a good one for me. Like if I, and I play like a lot of Mario ROM hacks and stuff, so there's a lot of text. Games that have like a lot of
Yeah.
text, even generally, I will try and do them in as much of a voice without any modification as I can. Now that's something that is about to change because I do have like a voice effect thing, which is going to be kind of cool.
Nice,
But
nice,
that's like a whole
nice.
thing where I feel like it can be, if not funny, entertaining. But then in terms of like humor and
Oh,
just
it's
general
definitely
comedic
like deadpan.
effect, yeah, yeah. Like what I
No,
like to
yeah,
do,
that's a
for me
style.
personally, is like I bounce off other people. If I have like that kind of like good, I can have a good chat with somebody and get like like go back to when we play content warning, like because we were just three guys in a room. There was a lot of equipment around. It was
With
just like
cameras.
yeah, here's how we can make this funny kind of thing, and just sort of spur of the
Yeah.
moment things, like like we went down into like, so for those who haven't played content warning, the whole, it's similar to Lethal Companies, like you're
Yeah.
just this little
Lethal Company
avatar.
style.
You have to go and like film these like monsters and scary things in a basement and make it entertaining to go viral. You need X number of views over a 3 day period, and it gets higher and higher over a period. Hashtag not sponsored. um, but yeah, like it's one of those things, like spur of the moment. You have these things. And I remember we went down into the under part where the main game is, and I remember you turning and going, they said this Ocean Gate thing is safe, right? Like
Yes,
just off the
yes.
cuff, brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
Of the
yeah, and I
and we
seriously
all
think,
stayed in that.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
I just that's the sort of thing. So,
and I'll say this, I can tell you have experience with improv comedy because of that moment and a bunch of moments like that that happened in that game where I would say something or you would say something and we would tag along. We would be
mhm.
like, we would add to it, and it makes it funnier.
Oh,
And you made
100%.
me laugh so many times, bro, because of that, because you understand the yes and concept.
So, what would the yes and concept? I'm assuming it's like
It
just continuity of kind of the
Yes,
scene, for
in
example.
maybe you're a natural. You like if you don't even know about
I
what
don't
that
have any
phrase
like,
means, you're probably a
so I
natural.
have no like real
But
experience in terms of like comedy. Doing like, I mean, me being behind the camera
yeah,
talking to people,
everyone
it's
has like
sort
a
of like,
yeah, they have like conversational experience. So like in improv comedy, that terminology like the yes and just means like when someone says a joke, even if it's like like if it's about you, if you agree to it, it makes it funny and it makes it so that like you can roll with the punches. So
Hmm.
like let's say someone makes fun of me and like, oh yeah, you and your stupid beanie, you probably keep your weed in it. I'd be like, yeah, 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 I do keep my plants in there. Stop talking about it. Like, you know what I mean? Rolling with the punches is part of what improv comedy is.
Hmm.
And so that's what I noticed you doing. And so I just I thought that you had taken classes or something, but there
Okay.
are people that are just
Awesome.
naturally funny like that because they figure it out on their own experiences. But yeah, the continuity is such a big deal in comedy because you don't want to be like, what do you mean we're playing content warning? What do you mean Ocean Gate? Like that wouldn't have been funny, right? But the fact that you're like adding to it, like, oh yes, yes, everything's gonna be okay. We have the. You said something about like we have a controller, like yeah, we have a Joy-Con or something.
The
I was like, oh
the
my god,
Logitech, the famous
yeah,
Logitech
yeah,
controller.
yeah. You're like, we have the Logitech controller ready and charged up or something. Like, yeah, being able to do that off the cuff, that's very authentic because it's not like you went online and searched what should I say with ChatGPT in that moment. It was you in the moment responding to what someone else said. So I think you're very right about there is ways to be yourself, and there's different styles. Like you said that you read the dialogue like in your voice, and I was gonna say like there is like deadpan comedy as well, like where
Yeah.
people stay in the same voice and they're hilarious. The biggest one is Stephen Wright, which is the king of one-liners. He stays in the same voice and he talks like this and he just makes an entire crowd laugh with his timing, and it's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
He's the well thought out jokes that he wrote are so brilliant. But I feel like there's different styles, and everybody's gonna have a different humor and a different their personality is supposed to be them. So like I always love seeing the way that other people stream and create their own moments because everybody has those moments. Everybody has those moments where they can express themselves either through humor or maybe someone asks you a question and you know a lot about this particular topic and you get to like share something with your viewer and all of a sudden like you have like a connection where it's no longer just, oh, I'm watching this guy to laugh. Now it's like I'm watching this guy because I relate to him and I like how he talks or whatever, right? Like at least for me that's how I feel. Like the people that I follow, I enjoy. Like I don't just follow randomly.
Yeah.
If I follow somebody, I'm like I want to keep track of this human. Like this guy's cool, or this person is awesome. This girl's interesting, or whatever the creator is doing. I feel like as long as you're yourself and you do it long enough, you'll learn your own style. And for some people, it might not require characters. Like for example, there's some people out there that yell a lot,
Yeah.
and it works for them. I can't I don't know. I can't yell all the time. It's like maybe once in a stream if something happens crazy, but like I can't see myself being one of those guys that's constantly like. And so like I feel you when you say like I'm not that.
Yeah.
Like there's things that you're not, and I'm not one of those yellers. So like, but I see people very successfully yelling at their community all day, and their chat is like crazy, but it's not me, so I don't do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
of course.
just every once in a while when a character comes out, you know what I'm saying? Like you're
100%, man.
sometimes you're just not that guy, and
Yeah.
you just have to be like, well, dude, let me be me, see what happens.
That's it. And that's how it always should be. You should just be yourself, you know? See, sticking on the subject of comedy and being a comedian, you know, you have done stand up. We've talked about a little bit about that. So tell us a little bit more about that. So obviously, like, you know, sure it started being behind the scenes in the sort of, you know, production line of
Yes,
things. So how did that like
yes.
evolve into you then coming up with your own material? I'm assuming having done your own shows, been on bills or shows and things like that. Like, tell us, like, you know, and like, tell us a bit about that and like your style of comedy when you're on the stage as opposed to like when you're on stream.
So oh, okay, that's a that
Bit
you
of a
have some
loaded
great
one.
questions. I appreciate no, I appreciate the creativity in your questions, man. I can tell that you research a little bit, at least, or at least you know the people that you're interviewing, because I've seen some of the other interviews that you've done, and I appreciate that you take consideration into each person's little world.
Thanks,
But
man.
to answer that, like, It did start off with the camera stuff. So I would initially just second. I need to fix this here. Initially, I would um like I was posting on Facebook and I was posting memes, like memes that I would make about local things, and it was very niche. And I started learning. This is during like when memes first started going viral, like beyond the forums, where memes jumped from forums into social media. This is what the era I'm talking about. So this has to have been sometime in 2012, 2010, 2011, where like you started to really see an uptick in people because of the iPhone that came out 2 years earlier. Almost everyone wanted a smartphone, so there was just a lot more users and everything was going more mainstream. And I noticed like that posting memes was a good way to get shares and people to follow you and stuff like that. So I followed all the local comedians and local content creators in my area, and then I started posting memes relating to them, so like referencing them and stuff like that, and so they would share it.
Yeah,
Think about it. If someone makes this is some if you're someone listening to this playback later, and you're wondering how do I like collab with big people. Um, Doing something like that where you make a meme about them that's positive, where it's like not making fun of them, but like just letting it known like who they are. Like any there's many meme formats, but you find a format that's positive where you're putting someone up on a pedestal but in a funny way. Tag them and do your thing, do the video or whatever the concept that you have, and just post it. And you never know. Well, sometimes these people just wake up and no one ever, even though they might have 300,000, 400,000 followers, it doesn't mean that people are making content about them. It's
absolutely.
usually them making content about themselves or making funny stuff or making content about interesting things they like. So when someone makes content about you and tags you and it's good, you're more inclined to share it. And so without even you knowing, you're collabing by doing something for someone where all of a sudden they could share it and it doesn't feel like they made it and it's more authentic because they're just sharing it, and all of a sudden like it puts you on a pedestal but you just shared their content. Now like you're both winning. You're getting people to follow him because now they see like, oh, you're a fan of this guy too, and so you start getting the adjacent people that are like switching back and forth between a bunch of creators, and they follow people that they collab with, people that they share. You have some people that just follow you just because their favorite content creator shared your content. So I kind of ping ponged my way up. I started by with collabing with somebody that had 5,000 followers on Facebook, and that was a local comedian. And since all of a sudden I'm working with them and their content looks way better because of the cameras I'm using and everything, then the person that had 20,000 followers is contacting me and being like, "Yo, why why aren't we collabing? Why are you that guy only has five?" So then you're like, "Hey, I can work with multiple people, man. I can build your brand differently however you want it, and they won't even know. They can keep their thing, you have your thing." And then that's how I started going from this other comedian that had 20,000 to another one that had 50,000 named Mario Salazar. And then with Mario Salazar, I got the attention of the well locally because I had 275,000. His name is Raymond Horta. And then yeah, they're still my friends to this day. They're still doing comedy in that industry. But eventually through that filmmaking world, I was able to get them to see the funny sides of me as well through conversation. And they would be like, "Yo, you should try comedy and stuff like that." And they inspired me because they said that you just have to sit down and write. And I would see them writing. I would see them with their joke books, and they were teaching me the underbelly of how to make somebody laugh or what makes laughter. Like, why do people laugh? And there's like psychology behind it, and I was learning basically the linguistic psychology underneath comedy. And like this includes words like timing, right? You hear those words and you're like, what's timing? It's like the cadence of your voice and when you have pauses and when you don't. Sometimes you can make someone laugh by pausing. And so yeah, it's like timing is something. Your presentation, the way that you look, the way that you're if you reference yourself in a funny way instantly, you have a good impression on people because you're making fun of yourself. So they're like, "Oh, this guy's cool. He's not fragile. He's not going to be out there like scared of something." So yeah, there's moments where you can find different ways in psychology to let people see the truest sides of you on stage. And so on stage, I would say that like through that through the teachings of the other comedians, I was able to find my own voice where it was a lot like um satire. And like, for example, one of my jokes, I'll explain this by saying one of my openers goes like this: look at the audience, smile and nod, introduce yourself, introduce the theme, stringline into your next linguistic punctuation, pause. And then people started laughing because they were realizing that I was just saying the structure of every joke that every comedian does. And I'm going down the line and I'm like, punchline, pause for laughter. And then people were laughing because I'm just reading like a script. And then I'm like, tagline. And then people are laughing, another tagline. Then they laugh again. I'm like, triple tagline. Then they're laughing again. Don't go for a fourth one. Rule of three. And then they're laughing at the fact that I'm referencing the rules of comedy. Rule of three.
Yeah,
So usually, like, the comedy goes a certain way, but I found my own twist on it where I was making fun of the art form, but also showing people how hard it is.
yeah,
And so I went the Penn and Teller route. That's what I call it. I was showing people the beauty of comedy, but through my act, which was like a script that I wrote that shows you just what comedians do on underneath, kind of exposing them, but at the same time making them all look like geniuses.
yeah,
So then everybody wanted me around. They would wanted me to open the shows because they would see that people would see what I was doing, and then they're like, "Oh, this is why heckling is bad." Because when someone would heckle, I would reference it. Oh, heckler, it's ruining the timing now. Oh, I have to bring this up now. Oh, I'm gonna have to be a dick. Dang it, man. And then like people would realize like there's a dance that the comedian is doing up there, and when you interrupt, it messes up the flow, and so they have to point it out now. Because if they don't point it out, then more people are gonna start yelling, and more people are gonna feel like it's okay. So you have to
yeah,
like almost like scold them for doing it. So yeah, people got to learn through my act what a comedy act is by seeing the underbelly, and then they would have a like the next comedian come in, and all of a sudden like it was a good way for them to know the rules of comedy because I would explain the rules of comedy when I was doing my bits. And so by having this character that if you place in front of other comedians, they would appreciate the other comedians more. It became almost like a no-brainer to hire me in the scene. They were like, "Yeah, dude, hire that guy. Put him up first. People will stop heckling. It's funny. It's educational. People appreciate our art form. I feel smart after Louie because he fucking explains what we're doing, but without ruining it." And so that's the route I went. I went the Penn and Teller route where I was showing the underbelly, and it worked out for a little bit, but it turned out I didn't like the art form. Like I didn't like the hours on the road.
yeah,
Sometimes you would travel 14 hours just to perform to a crowd of like 10, and you're like, "Oh shit." It's like, but
yeah,
the venue paid you, but you're just like, "Damn, like I traveled 12 hours for 10 people." Like, and you have to perform as if there's 200. So
yeah, exactly.
sometimes it was tough, man. Sometimes it was tough.
Yeah, I can see it being like such a hard job as well. Like, I mean, and with that, from what you've explained to me, nailed down to an art form because I'm sure in that world there is nothing more daunting than being the opener because like I've been to a lot of comedy
Yeah,
shows in my time and
it's hard.
a lot of openers have just not done it for me personally. And you
It's
can
hard.
it's one of them things as well like um this is where like the difference of like what we do on a screen compared to like when you're live on a stage. It's that laughter is infectious. So you could tell a joke that half of the audience find funny, but because there's that
And the other,
atmosphere and everyone's
yeah,
laughing, you're gonna get three quarters to like a lot more people who are laughing because it's just a good atmosphere, good natured humor, that and the other. But sometimes people don't necessarily find it hilarious, but they're laughing because it's a mood thing.
it's
But
contagious.
yeah,
Like if someone
exactly,
finds it super hilarious and they're dying, you're like almost laughing because you want to join
yeah,
in on the. It's a social thing, and
hundred
it's been around
percent,
for
yeah,
since language was around, right?
yeah, and
I think you're tapping into that, and it is true. It's a tribal thing.
but it does go the other way as well. So like I've seen like a lot of openers where half the people have kind of given like an awkward laugh and it's not really carried, and you almost just kind of not feel bad for laughing at the joke because that's them doing their job, but you just feel bad for the person on stage if you can tell that it's like not going amazing. The audience aren't really
you
clicking.
you can you can tell when they're not connected to the
Yeah.
audience, because like what a lot of comedians do early on, myself included, when I was more amateur, like I would go through a script and I
Hmm.
would play out the script. But the problem with going through a script is that if something doesn't hit and you don't address that it didn't hit, you've lost them.
Yeah.
The moment you lose them, it's over. You're gonna bomb. So I think the correct thing to do as an opener, whenever like you say something and it doesn't resonate with a lot of people, mention that.
Yeah.
Mention like, oh, you guys don't like dogs, and then they'll laugh at the fact that they're, oh, you guys are cat people, and then they all start clapping or whatever. You have to figure out why they were offended, or if you say a dog joke and it's putting up dog people and not cat people, and they
Yeah.
don't laugh, you have to mention it like, oh fuck me, you guys are cat people, like, and then they'll laugh at the, like, you just have
Yeah.
to be honest. And if you maintain that honesty and be like, oh well, now you guys fucking hate me, and now they're gonna laugh
Yeah.
again. Like, okay, well now you know my secret, I'm a dog guy, so anyways. Like, you
Yeah.
have to kind of like just write it, and if they don't do that, if they don't connect with the audience and they don't read the room right, yeah, they're gonna bomb, and it's kind of awkward because they
Oh,
have to sit through the
100%.
script. You're sitting through the script, and you're like, oh boy, he hasn't mentioned the elephant in the room.
Yeah. And like another quite common one that I've seen is um oh, that joke landed better in name any rival nearby town, and then people kind of are just like, oh, right, okay, because there's like as an audience there seems to be this kind of like wanting to
Yes.
be the best venue of the tour, wanting to be like the
Yeah.
loudest laughs, wanting to, even though like I mean you get it with musicians too, like it's like, oh, this that oh, last night was the best night of the tour, can this do better? But it flows on every single thing. It's like a
What you
fucking
just
hype
mentioned right
thing.
now, what you just mentioned right now lets me know that you've done stand-up comedy, because that's one of the,
Or
you know how magicians have sleight of hand,
hmm.
comedians have sleight of joke, and their sleight of joke is when you get to a location, you go to a local, someone that you ask them if they're local, hey, you from here? And they're like, yeah. Ask them, who's the rival city of this city? Like, what city does everyone hate around here? You ask them, what's the best food place here? And you ask them, what football team does most of the city go for? And you get those things, and you can instantly like be likable, because
Yeah.
as soon as you mention that like city that no one likes, and you're in the community all of a sudden. So that sleight of joke, I guess social hack, where like getting to a town and getting information is actually super pro, and I've seen a lot of professionals do it. In fact, I saw Fluffy one time when we were in a show together with Fluffy, and I saw the way that he was just asking questions to the locals, that this was away from Texas. This was up in I think it was like east Oklahoma, or some piece in some site in Oklahoma. I forgot exactly where. There's so many shows that you kind of forget the locations, but it was an awkward location, so you had to ask information,
Yeah.
and everyone had an accent, and he just wanted to get information on like, how do you get, in how do you get in on this community? And the way he did it is he went up stage and he started doing their accent, and then he was like, "Nah, I'm just kidding. I don't talk like that." He was like, I'm not a politician." Everyone laughed. Everyone started instantly liked him, and in 5 seconds, he found how to get everyone
Yeah.
on his side. Pretend to have their accent, and then be like, "Just kidding. I'm just a fucking fat Mexican or whatever." And all of a sudden, like, he had the crowd. I'm like, "Dang, dude!" And he brought up the city. He brought up the best food place. He said like, "Oh, I had to stop by it," and he said the name of the restaurant. And he's like, and now, I think I gained 50 pounds, but I love the food. The food is good. So yeah, like there's ways, like, as a comedian, that you can use to kind of like uh get a get a quick laugh, that's like almost like you're hijacking their community, but then that gives them the opportunity to like see your side of jokes, like to
Yeah.
pay attention to your authentic side, where it's like, okay, yeah, you got them with the city joke, but then you're gonna get them with your Pokemon joke or whatever, and all of a sudden they know more about you through your jokes. And it's kind of like streaming in that, like, if it like if there's zero viewers in my stream, I'm not really talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just how, like, if there's zero people in front of me, I mean, it's kind of hard to practice a set without audience. Comedy needs audience. Unlike music that's passive, you can't just sit through a comedy show. You listen and you hear the audience, and if they're not laughing, you have to adjust.
Yeah.
And in music, that doesn't happen. Like, if someone's not feeling the song at 30 seconds in, like, you have to continue playing the song. You're fucking stuck. You have to finish the song and then go to the next one. But in comedy, it's not like that. It's very, very fast paced and reactive, and not everyone can do it. Not everyone has it. That's why I'm no longer in it, because to do it professionally, you have to always keep writing new jokes, and it's a lot of driving, and it's a lot of selling tickets. That's
Yeah.
the business. It's a show business. So I know the show side of it, but the business side is a little bit tough, man.
Oh, for sure. You know, and like the whole stand-up comedy scene, like where I live in Northern Ireland, like it's over the last number of years has gotten like a lot bigger, but it's one of these things where it's like kind of essentially niched into like one group of people. Like all these people are like affiliated with one another in some way, shape, or form. It's like constant collaborations to the point where it's almost like hard. It makes it almost like harder for any sort of like amateur up and coming to kind of like break into it unless like they have connections. Like you were talking about the networking before. You know, it has become like such like a big thing over here, but like you kind of do also see like the business side of it on that too, because we do have a comedian here, Shane Todd. He actually regularly goes over to the States and Canada. Um, but that's probably about the height of it. Everywhere else is like local, like there maybe tour 2 or 3 times a year, go over to England, the rest of the UK, things like that. But like it's good to see that in this modern day that stand-up comedy still does thrive. And like
It's thriving.
yeah, I think more so now than ever, especially with like, you know, short form content, people posting their jokes and being able to push it out like that. But it's one of those things like, I mean, sometimes you kind of need a bigger location to be able to do it because there's
I
more kind of appetite for it. In a small place that there's like 1 million people in this entire country, it's kind of like if you're not in that sort of circle, it's like, how are you really gonna kind of like, you're gonna have to get lucky that they might see a tweet of yours or something that you've tagged them in.
Mhm.
Like I've reached out to a number of them about appearing here, and it's one of them things. It's like
it's
get your work cut out for you.
it's it's very competitive. Like,
Yeah,
stand-up comedy is very competitive because, like, unlike music where, like, you could form bands and collaborations, in comedy it's more like you're building a personal brand, and everyone is. And so, like, like you said, like, they like to hang out with other comedians that know the craft, right? So that they can seem like a group. And you need a group in comedy because you need an opener, right? You need a guest. You need the headliner. So, like, there's like a flow to the show where you don't want the best guy immediately out.
yeah,
You want the audience to kind of like simmer with the initial less experienced comedians, and then slowly get into the good stuff, and then eventually the freaking headliner that's just making everybody die, right?
yeah,
And yeah, that structure is skill based. It is a meritocracy. So, like, if you don't have an hour, it's going to be super hard to be a headliner if you don't have an hour, right? Where an opener just has to have 5-10 minutes. So the entry is a little bit easier, but still that position is very hard to get because everyone's trying to get in on an entourage comedian,
yeah.
like they want to go in on the road with them and get paid. So it's very hard to get with the people that are doing it for a living and get them to give you a chance.
Oh,
It's
for sure.
difficult, and because, like, it's audience based, like, it sucks because the people that are the most successful in comedy have it easier because the bigger the crowd that you have, it's a lot easier to find people that get your comedy, that get your humor. And so, like you said, there will be people that laugh, and then they become like beacons that make the people around them laugh, and then you can fill up a crowd laughing easier if there is, say, 100 people in the room versus 10,
Yeah,
right? And so, yeah, it's tough to really test your material out as a comedian to a room of 10, and you think that you have this set that's working, and all of a sudden you take that set and you try it in a room of 100 and it doesn't hit the same, and you're like, oh shit, it's a whole different beast. And it is. If you're doing a theater and there's like 3,000 people, it's a different style of comedy than if you're doing a parlor, 100 people or less styled environment. And I think there's a lot of layers to it, and like you said, it's very competitive, so it's
hmm
hard to practice when you're not in the circle of the traveling comedians.
for sure.
That's what I've faced for a long time. That was the hardest thing.
Yeah, definitely. And this is what I
open mics
yeah,
open mics are where you have to practice.
100%. This is like where I get very curious about like more up and coming comedians, like globally in this day and age, in the age of the digital age of like short form content and TikTok, like the amount of people who you'll discover on TikTok doing like skits, doing like bits and pieces of their own stuff, like crowd interaction videos, things like that, like
Yeah,
or even just yeah, even mainly just skits, I suppose. Like a lot of them do kind of use that as a gateway, whether they fall into it just because they're naturally funny or it's something that they want to do, getting into stand-up comedy.
I think Dave Chappelle popularized sketch comedy back
Yeah.
then, and it's still around because of that.
Oh, 100%.
So Keel and Peele or another
Yeah, yeah.
powerful, and there's a bunch of them, and these are just some that I know from this side,
Yeah.
but like even globally, there's just a bunch of artists everywhere from all types of countries that have pushed the art form of stand-up comedy forward. But like you said, it's evolved almost. It's changed where like you have social media comedians and you have heckler comedians that almost want to be heckled for their content.
Yeah.
And then there's comedians that are like getting people pairing up couples in their shows, and people go to try to get paired up. It's strange. There's all forms of comedy now.
Yeah. Because
But
like what
yeah,
interests
I like the
me. Oh, sorry, go on, dude.
no, keep going.
Oh,
What were
sorry.
you saying?
Because like what interests me is like um the fact that there's so many like up and coming from social media, how they find the transition from going from making clips, making skits, doing the odd like live where they just chat to people and be funny versus stepping onto a stage where you only get one take. That's kind of what I'm very interested in with like more up and coming people getting into this sort of industry. Um because if anything, that makes it way more unforgiving because I think people are going to remember it more because a lot more people are going to go into these things with an existing base. Like, say, Mr. A takes the stage, people know him from TikTok for his skits. His stand up could be absolute dog shit, but people are going
Dog
to
shit.
remember
Yeah,
that more rather than
yeah.
somebody who has just done like, traveled around doing open mics and stuff like that. Then they got their big break just randomly because like I said, it's a whole different thing. Just to go back to your
I
point, it's a
agree.
whole
They're
different
not this.
style now.
They're not the same. Like so, it reminds me sort of like it kind of reminds me of. It's just that like going from being an open micer to creating content on the internet is one thing because you're marketing yourself, right? But these new people, like you're saying, that go from being content creators to like, oh, I'm gonna pivot and be a comedian, and they think that they could just like easily do it because they think it's because the art of comedy, it has sleight, like just like magicians have sleight of hand. So
Yeah,
the sleight of jokes is the art of making a very well thought out monologue look like it's happening in the spur of the moment. That's what stand-up comedy is. And a lot of it sometimes is in the moment and it is improv. But there is a structure, a backup plan just in case the improv doesn't go well. Comedians have like these jokes that they go into. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like the way that they tell those jokes and the way that they get to the premise is an art form of making it look like it's just someone talking on stage. So then these content creators think that, oh, I could just go on stage and talk and like a comedian and I'll make it. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Just like you can't just grab a deck of cards and take it on stage and be a magician. You have to
Yeah.
learn the sleight of hand. You have to learn the sleight of jokes. And so, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed it on the head. Like, there's a lot of new age comedians, or I would just say, quote unquote, comedians that say that they're doing comedy, but they're not. They're pivoting their internet fame to just get more money off of tickets, and you go to the show and it sucks, and they just got carried by their friend who is a stand-up comedian, or their headlining buddy who is a stand-up comedian, and you went and saw their like opening act or something, and you're just like, what is this trash? And you remember that more than if it was somebody that went through the trenches and open mics and actually understands the art of comedy, who then, like you said, gets their break. They're gonna that's yeah, it's I think it's way better to be the second one, just because like you will be more experienced in that art form. But yeah, I think it's I think the former is as lucrative as, like I mentioned earlier, as someone grabbing like three sponge balls and being like, I'm gonna go on Penn and Teller. I don't need to study anything. I got the sponge balls. Like that's all I need. Like no,
Yep.
that's not all you need. There's a like, whole psychology part of it. How long have you been doing stand up, Andy?
I've never done stand up in my life, man.
You Oh, you never done stand up.
Nope.
Oh, I mean, sorry. How long have you been like I guess I meant a fan of it. Like it sounds like you're a fan of the art, or like you watch some stand up. That's what I meant to.
Yeah, so like very casually, probably since I was about maybe 13 or 14. So going back about
Gotcha.
17, 18 years. A lot of it, so like being obviously in the UK would have been a lot of like UK comedy. So I think the first comedian I was ever exposed to was Dylan Martin. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Dylan. Yeah,
Irish comedian. So
Irish.
yeah, he was the first comedian I was ever exposed to. I think through watching the BBC series Black Books, and then I seen him live in 2010, I want to say. Um,
How was the live show?
it was brilliant. It's just so like I don't know if it's like the Irish thing, but like Irish comedians, it's very much kind of they'll sit and have a conversation with you for an hour to 2 hours, and it'll just be funny. Like it's just all story based, very long, drawn out things, but it's just entertaining and engaging, and you think it's going somewhere, not necessarily, but it's still funny. So like a lot of it had been like early would have been like British comedy, so like the likes of Dylan Martin, Jimmy Carr, Frankie Boyle. Like when I was younger, I was always into that kind of like shock humor type thing. But like I always noticed like the trends that would have been like always the kind of how to address the audience and stuff like that, and just kind of not necessarily how to make things funny because humor is subjective, but just there is like a specific style that um things
It's
like
like
that.
music, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly. And like I'm a
people is
big fan of music and a big fan of wrestling, and each one of these things they have like their own that's like kind of ways to sort of wake up the audience and engage them. And they don't have anything to say, they're still listening, kind of thing. As you have like said this magical buzzword, whether it be the city that you're in or something like we talked about, like like a rival football team or a neighbor in town or something like that, just something to kind of gauge the interest, and then just
yeah.
kind of things like that, like. And I think it's probably for me personally more on like the entertainment side of things I've been a fan of, and obviously like stand up falls into that. I definitely think it's way more slept on in comparison to the likes of like music and like wrestling and things like that. But I kind of also think that stand up comedy in this whole Netflix era is becoming like a little bit more diluted, which is a bit of a shame. Like
Yeah, I agree.
I think
The
it's the sort of thing.
saturation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know
That's why I left, bro.
no,
You're
for
absolutely
sure.
right. That's exactly why I left. I'm like, oh, it's so hard now. Like it was easier in the 90s and early 2000s, and now it's like almost like what happened to music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? what happened to music there's so much saturation that like it's even if you're good, even if you're amazing, it's still a lottery to get noticed.
Yeah, for sure. And
And
like,
comedy is getting like that because all these amateur comedians are that have money are getting on Netflix, and I'm like, this is diluting what people what comedy is. Now people don't want to go to shows because they think it's that. And I'm
yeah.
like, no, it's not that.
Oh, for sure. Like, I
It's
mean, and I can tell you my favorite comedy show of all time, Robin Williams live on Broadway, 2002. My number one favorite comedy show of all time. I think I could go back and watch it all the time and still find it funny. That man was a fucking G.
yes.
Like, he was just, and like, he had little to no crowd interaction, but it was the sort of thing, I think this kind of comes back to the whole like comedic styles where some people kind of lean on certain things. And now this, 2002, this was like before the whole world of content creation and things. People were doing it because it was like, you were going to a live show. It was like a one night only thing, and like this might have been the start of like DVD specials. Um,
Hmm.
where one show out of maybe 30, 40 on the tour would have been recorded.
Would be
Um,
filmed,
yeah.
sometimes multiple shows,
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Like we had one show that was
and
like
then
the
they try
the
to get the best
flagship show.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like they would have one show where everything would have been recorded, all the angles, but every single show would have been to kind of fill in sort of little continuity gaps and just kind of
Yeah.
mix and match certain things. But it's
That's why
based
they
around
wear
this
the
one
same
show.
clothes when
Yep.
they're shooting specials. They wear the same clothes and they try to have the same backgrounds in their setup. It's interesting the way
Yeah.
that works.
But that there was my favorite comedy show of all time. It just had absolutely everything. So if you've never
And what
seen
was
it,
this one again?
Robin Williams live on Broadway. It was back in 2002.
Robin Williams, dude.
Robin Williams, he was absolutely like. I remember having so I think he only ever did two comedy specials, like 2002 and
Yeah,
2009,
but they were
and
phenomenal.
phenomenal, absolutely incredible. So for anybody who
The
hasn't watched them,
voices,
yeah, it is just
everything.
the transition between him just speaking, going into character, basically a one man show. Like it's less so much of a comedy show making jokes than it is just a one man show. So like anybody who's never seen these, definitely look them up. Um, and like it's just
I agree.
absolutely
It
phenomenal.
it and another one that's on that same level is the Jim Carrey one with the face expressions.
Yes, yes,
With the weird colored shirt, like every if
yeah,
no one's watched that set, they should. It's one of the most bizarre comedy sets where he makes people laugh with his face.
and it's like Jim Carrey as well. Like in that I've seen like that particular scene of that stand up, and it's like he almost comes across as nervous. It's the sort of things like, yeah, guys like impressions, and then he just goes, "Here's Clint Eastwood," and he does the face, and you're just like,
He does the face
how
exactly,
is
dude.
this just like, how is it possible? It just yeah, and
You know he sat in front of the mirror for hours and hours to get all that to get that set down,
it's
dude. That's how you know he put in the work because he's
yeah,
known for his face, like his ability to move his face in so many different ways. That's why he did the Grinch. And like yeah, like he used that as his advantage because he said that in one of the podcasts that I saw, he said that he studied at some point how to move muscles on your face individually. Like you can think and like just how you can move your eyebrow or whatever. He said you can move your cheeks, you can
yeah,
move your lips. There's all these muscles you can train yourself and you can isolate them and you can combine them. And he said emotions are like chords and the chords are made from the different muscles. And I was just like, damn, dude, he
yeah,
studied like everything about it.
yeah, and I think that is like an absolute art form in itself because it's like it's almost as if he's just discovered one day randomly he can do this, and
Yeah,
he's looked into
transformed
it
his
and he's
face.
turned it into something incredible, something that's like been memorable for the last like 40 years.
He
It's
hasn't
just
done that bit
absolute
in 40 years and
insane.
it's still there.
Yeah,
It's still there on the internet,
exactly. That
floating
yeah, that
around
was like
every
the
once in a while.
mid 80s they did that. It was like I think that was like before he was like a mainstream actor, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
like it's just kind of
that was before
that's
Dumb and Dumber, I think.
yeah.
That might have been before Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber was his big break
Dumb and
as an
Dumber and
actor.
Dumb and Dumber and The Mask, they would have been around the same time, I
The
think.
Mask, yeah.
Yeah, and even like yeah, like before then, and it's just I think everyone knows him for this, and it's like that's what I kind of like about like say actors of like that age who started out in comedy. It's sort of like
Yeah.
that's not what they're known for. But then people go back once they get this popularity and they're like, "Holy shit, have you seen his comedy? It's incredible." And like that was like me with Robin Williams. Just I was just absolutely I kind of knew he was funny, but I didn't realize stand-up comedian. And I was like, "Oh, I need to check this out." And it was like I'm so glad I did. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily translate going the other way. When you see just like full-blown actors going into comedy, sometimes it's like, like Kevin Hart is probably the best example. One of the fucking
Yeah.
worst comedians ever, if you can even call him that. Maybe that's a controversial opinion to
Yeah.
some. I don't know,
No, no,
but
I agree with
fuck,
what
I
you're
can't
saying
stand him.
because there are some comedians that you could tell like have put hours and hours into their craft and it's very artful. And you can tell like that damn like they're making me laugh because they understand how they're making me laugh. Then there's comedians that think the other thing that we talked about earlier where like they see the slide of jokes and they think that it's just someone on stage talking, but
Yeah,
it's made to look like that, and they think that that's what they have to do, and they go on up on stage and just talk without having like you could be a storyteller and make it as a comedian because some storytellers like you said like the Irish comedian you saw, some storytellers are so phenomenal that they just are funny
yeah,
and that they just know how to tell stories and they're funny and there is that style of comedy that still exists.
yeah. Well,
But
Billy Connolly's
some
probably the biggest example of that as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so there's some comedians that still have that, but some try to do that and they don't have the story telling ability, and it's just a mess to listen to. I understand what you mean by that. There's just some people that shouldn't be comedians,
oh, 100%.
or at least they should study the art form before putting it out there.
Mm-hmm.
But on speaking about art forms, another art form that I'm into is magic. Would you like to see a magic trick real
I
quick?
would love to see a magic trick as well. It's actually
I
funny
want
you say that because actually it leads me in perfectly into the next question, which was going to be about hobbies and interests, but I think this pretty much covers it.
would would you name any playing card in the deck of cards?
Like say it out loud.
Yeah, and take note that there's a wallet in the bottom corner of this video.
Okay.
I want you to just say any card out loud,
Five of
and it
clubs.
literally can't. Is there a reason why you picked the five of clubs, or is that just a card you like?
It just feels neutral.
Well, it's strange that you say the five of clubs because that wallet's been there this before you said that, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna take the wallet, take it up here like this.
Right.
Now, what was the card you said?
Five of clubs.
Five of clubs.
No fucking
There you
way.
go.
Oh,
No
come
other
on.
card in here.
That is what?
There you go. Magic is actually here's an interesting fact about magic. It's my oldest hobby. And not just that, like it's the one that got me to socialize more because when I was a kid, I got into magic in middle school and it made it so that instead of me being afraid of going up to people, it was more about let me blow their mind with a magic trick at some point in the conversation. So the conversation became secondary, and it was no longer scary because I'm
Yeah.
like, what's scarier is if I fuck up the trick. So by having something more difficult in a social setting, all of a sudden when you're not trying to perform magic, it's fucking easy. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do anything right now. We're just talking. That's awesome. Yeah. But when you're trying to do magic, it's way different because you're distracting the process of the magic trick using sleight of hand and psychology and all these things. But yeah, it's fun. Magic is one of the things that I you said the to answer the hobby question. Filmmaking, music. I write music. I play guitar. I sing. Um, with yeah, of course, magic. I do mostly card magic, some coin magic. Um, it's mostly street magic that I do, and some parlor
Mhm.
magic. So like, I could do magic to a group of 5 people, or 30, 50 people. But that's where I don't do stage magic where
Yeah.
there's thousands of. I can't do that. Um, for any other hobbies? Oh yeah, I like speed cubing. I have a PB of 35 seconds on a Rubik's cube.
Oh, nice.
Um, I do Zippo tricks. So I like to most of them are dexterity
Hmm.
art forms like pen tricks. I got into the fushigi ball, Zippo tricks. That's why and it started with card magic with the way that you can. The cool thing about playing cards is that you can do so much with them. Like you can do divination, you can do appearances, vanishes. You could like that time traveling trick I just did, where it's like, how did I know that the five of clubs was gonna be in there? And
Yeah.
spawn a flame on the wallet and take it out, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what the? Is this guy a time traveler? That wallet was there the whole time.
That is insane.
But
Like
yeah.
I'm blown away by that, man. Like I mean, obviously a magician never feels a secret. I like it.
I want to be a part of the magic magician circle someday. So if
Yeah.
I didn't have that goal, I would tell you how it's done. But
Oh, for sure.
in person, no one knows what we talk about.
Because
Or offline, after this is done, I could tell you if you want.
because for me, right, the whole uh, I suppose this is all part of it. Like me being the subject of that there. Like I I'm always going to be sitting now thinking, what if I had said something different? What if I had said something different? Like could it have been this? Could it have been that? And that's the kind of thing. Like, and I think as
That's
well,
the
it's the beauty of it.
so a cool some cool factoids about magic that some people might not know. It's known as the third oldest profession. So according to historians, they say, prostitution, uh, and tool making were one of the first ones, or and they're kind of paired up. And then advertisement was the second profession to advertise tool making and
Yeah.
prostitution. And then third was due to shamanism, the art of magic. And so consequently, there's more literature for magic as an art form than any other art form on the planet. There
Wow.
are more books about magic than anything else. So, if anything, magicians have a lot of studying to do if they do get into it. But because it goes all the way back to the shaman's cup and ball trick, uh, there's so much there's so much to learn that there's something for everybody in magic.
Hmm.
But like you said right now, like the beauty about magic is that it's kind of disturbing subconsciously, unlike most art forms, because it's disturbing in a way where you're like, wait, what if I had said five of hearts or
Yeah.
a ten of clubs or something else? And the fact that that impossibility is conflicting with what the physics of reality, and like, no, divination is not real, or premonitions don't exist, time traveling doesn't exist. And then all of a sudden it plays around with that. It kind of temporarily destroys models of reality, and that's
Yeah.
what magic is. It's like it shatters people's uh, uh, perception just for a little bit of time, like for a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes, and then it goes back to normal because they realize like it's just a trick. But it's cool. That feeling is only found in the art of magic and in cinema. You can find that feeling in films. You can find it in magic. That confusion, that like allure of like amazement and awe. You're like, what the heck just happened? Aside from naturally occurring awe-inspiring moments, like watching the Grand Canyon is one of those things that can make that feeling as well. Or watching a giant water Niagara Falls for the first time. Stuff
Yeah.
like that can also instigate those emotions. But magic is definitely one of those that I love to use for networking, because it's one thing to go up to somebody, Andy, and be like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to collab. I'm a aspiring streamer and all this," and it's another thing to tell them, "Name any card." And I'll say any number. Now take that deck of cards and pick it up and count to that number. And then they find their card there, and then they turn over all the cards and realize they're all different and they don't know what the fuck just happened. And then you bust out a business card from your wallet and say, if you ever need a magician, let me know. They're
Yeah.
gonna remember that over you just talking and trying to sell yourself. So magic is a cool way to network because it blows people's minds, even people that are in a hurry. It stops them in their tracks. And if they're busy and they have a meeting, they don't care anymore. They're like, how did this guy just do that? And then now they have their business card, and you made it
Yeah.
into a CEO's wallet or whatever the heck, bro. But
Yeah.
magic is a tool for me for networking. It's fun. It makes people laugh, and it's not harmful. It's the most peaceful form of deception on the planet.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like yeah, And it is something that makes people think, like we just said, like it makes people think, and that in itself is a powerful tool. Like, because I kind of always like feel that like if you're going to approach somebody with something, with anything, like I feel like they need to get something out of it. Like whether you're streaming,
Yes.
every single stream that I do, I kind of like want everybody at the end of that stream to have gotten at least one thing out of it, whether it be that was a nice way to kill a couple of hours, that was very funny, or this particular moment made me laugh. Things like that. And
Yeah,
I kind of feel like
or
that should
wow, I never thought about that particular
yes,
subject like that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
If they can leave smarter or more wise, or even you leave smarter or more
yeah,
wise with something they say, it's a symbiotic thing. Like
yeah.
sometimes it's them leaving something for you and you're like, "Wow, do you think you might be struggling with something as a streamer, maybe like you not liking the game you've been playing, and then they tell you like, "Can I tell you something? I would watch you even if you played something else." And you're like, what? And then all of a sudden, five, seven, eight people telling you the same thing, and you're like, for real? And then like, yeah, sometimes you leave with more inspiration from your own community than you leaving them with something. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I see what you mean about that. Um, but yeah, like I was gonna say about the magic thing that you said earlier, like, um, I also see it that way. Like whenever I perform a magic trick, I don't want people to feel inferior or to feel less smart than when I approach them. What I'd like for them to feel is more like more self-aware, and almost like I perform magic to let people know like, hey, the advertisements do this to you too, but they don't tell you about it like I am. Hey, your boss might do this type of gaslighting too, but they don't tell you about it like I am. And so magicians are just keeping you more self-aware and more alert of your weaknesses
Yeah.
psychologically, to just be more attentive and to be more like like more critical in your thinking. And that's the way magic should be. It should never be like, oh, I am smarter than somebody, look at my magic, ha ha ha. Nah, fuck that. It should be more like, we all know it's not real. How did this happen? And we can talk about it. And it's more like, for me, it's more like a social lubricant. It's like a breaking the ice, type of thing. If you do this to a girl, it's almost like the easiest way to like get them to be interested. So I use it in dating too, where I freaking make a rose appear, and I'm like, "Hey, are you in the mood to be hit on right now with a magical flower?" Like, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Yes." So I use it in various ways, but it's usually in a positive way, and
Yeah.
to make a conversation a little bit more memorable, or to make an interaction a little bit less awkward. Magic is a cool way to like just kind of do that if they do it right. If it's somebody that's very smug and thinks that they're better, like they shouldn't be magicians,
Oh yeah.
because that's not what the art form is about.
Yeah, because what like particularly fascinates me is like, as a magician, then you're always a few steps ahead. Um, and the best part about that is like, you go to show somebody a magic trick and they kind of like, oh, I know it's all bullshit. Like I know it's all sleight of hand, this, that, and the other. Like they then kind of start to focus on the wrong thing. Like, you'll do a trick and they'll be looking at like, they'll be
Your
looking at
thumb or
something,
something.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
to see where the sleight of hand, but then forgetting that you have nine other digits on both your hands. And
And there's also sleight of speech where like you'll hear, I mean, they call it patter. A lot of magicians call it patter, where they absorb your attention with their words, and they say something, they ask a question or something to divert your attention. So there's a lot of different methods, and not this is not just used by magicians, this is used by hypnotists, it's used by like cops, it's used by like psychologists. It's a thing that is very well known in many different fields, but magicians were the first ones to kind of exploit that, to show people like, hey, you're vulnerable, you could be hypnotized, like, or you could be this, and like be careful with your brain. And it kind of makes you more prepared. Like I watched this mentalist named Darren Brown,
yes.
and he has like a lot of specials where he like does these super intricate like gaslighting, I guess, events where they're trying to, and the person signs up for it, and they're like, yeah, I want to be fooled, I want you to get me, and like a thousand people, and he chooses one of those people that signed up, and he doesn't tell them when it's going to happen. They just think like it's like a job, or they think it's a gig, a regular thing in their life, and it's months later, it's like 9 months later
Mm.
after you signed up, you already forgot. And he does these things where he gets a bunch of actors like 100 plus actors to play out this event and make this person believe this reality is happening. And it just, that show, someone can look at it and be like, wow, that's fucking crazy, like they traumatized that person. But 9 out of 10 times the people walk away saying like, I need to be more alert, like I don't
Yeah.
want to be manipulated like that. And then like they watch back the episode, they get paid for it, of course they signed up for it and they get paid for it, but they also like realize like, wow, like all my weaknesses that I have, like I shouldn't have said yes to that person, I shouldn't have said no to the, like they start to realize all their little blind spots and they walk away in a positive way. Darren Brown does, and that's the right way to do it. You if you fool somebody, it's not good to be like, ah ha ha ha, and like laugh at it. It's more like, everyone knows that it's a trick, and if the person that's talking about the particular victim in this case for Darren Brown's show realizes things that they didn't know about themselves, and they leave smarter, they leave more powerful. Now they can't be manipulated like that. Now next time they're going to be way more self-alert, and they're going to remember their experience in a way where like if it's a life death situation later, like he was prepared in an environment that was safe with Darren Brown, where nothing was going to happen eventually. But yeah, like I think there's cool ways to use the art form, but like, yeah, it's like comedy. There's various styles of magic. Like I can't do the sponge ball and like the cup and balls. Like to me, that's very cartoony and it's like old school magic. I like this kind, like where you bust out flames and you bust out the
Yeah.
card they thought of or shit like that. It's more modern where they're like, wait, what? It's an impossibility really quickly. Um, but yeah, I feel like everyone has at some point tried either watching magic and they got into it, or they performed magic at some point. Everyone gets a magic kit when they're 12 or something, or at least most people say that, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like an internet trope that every young boy was a magician at some point. And I guess for me, it just never left because it was like a social hack in middle school. Because before I was just known as like this nerd kid, and then all of a sudden I was doing card magic and I didn't get into like flames till I was an adult, but like I would do like coin and card magic, and people would look forward to it in the lunch breaks. And I started being that cool kid, and the girls liked magic, and I was like, oh shit, like girls like magic more than guys, like this is cool. And I just never left it because and since I never got into the cringy magic, like I was always just more of a card magician. It was
Yeah.
a lot more acceptable, people, because of David Blaine. He blew up around the same time I was going to middle school, and he made street magic cool. So I got into it around that time, and like I had just haven't left since. And it looks like there's a bunch of more famous magicians now, and like it's more accepted thanks to people like Penn and Teller with the Foolish show.
Yeah.
It's more of like a mainstream thing, and I enjoy it. I enjoy that people. I'm not a gatekeeper. Like if people want to get into magic, like there's a lot of resources, and it's fun. It's a fun art form. I think I like it more than any of the other art forms I have. I constantly joke around. I tell people that someday I'll retire from everything, but I'll be a magician. Like when I retire, like I'll be an old man doing card magic and doing YouTube videos as an old man doing card magic. Like
That's the thing. It's
I don't
it's
know.
the
I
sort of
take
thing that like never leaves.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
magic
It's
is
one of
something you can do forever. Of course, it's like it never dies. Like you say, it's the oldest.
it has a
One of the,
high skill ceiling too. Like you can keep learning about it over and over and over and over.
yeah, of course. Like it's incredible.
Yo, you got rated. Let's
Did.
go.
So yeah, Louis, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Like honestly, it's been incredibly
Same, brother.
insightful. I do just have one more question for you. Um, so yeah, obviously, even taking streaming aside from things, just streaming entertainment, at all the different like avenues that has taken you in life, everything, every constant learning curve, we could say. Um, Keeping people engaged with what we do and things like that. If you could go back to your younger self right from the very early days, from like I say, not even your streaming career, from your entertainment, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would I would tell my past self that Trying new skill sets and failing at first is completely fine, even if you end up leaving that skill set behind due to the fact that expanding your brain with new concepts and new skills always somehow stays with you in an adjacent form. In my case, I tried music and I failed. But due to music, learned audio engineering that later became very useful for streaming and filmmaking, and it still stays with me to this day because in this digital world, you always need a mic, and I know everything about mics thanks to my musician skill set, even though I failed as a musician. I failed as a comedian, but those concepts of comedy and the ability to make somebody laugh still stays with me to this day, and it helps me in social networking, it helps me in relationships, it helps me with everything having to do with social dynamics. So the way that I failed as a magician, even like I just explained, that kind of still stays with me, and I still do it because I always did that specific art form for myself. So I never failed for myself with magic since I enjoy seeing the faces and people light up, their childlike wonder, spawned back for a couple of seconds. And I could keep going on. The skill sets that you fail at first might seem like a waste of time to you, but you must go through those eras where you think you're this, you think you're a musician, you think you're that, and keep pushing through. And if something doesn't work out, find some new inspiration, because eventually, just how streaming um it was a space where I could finally try everything, where I could bring all my skill sets into one format. I find that it's something I'm gonna be doing forever, like kind of like the magic thing. Like I don't see me stopping streaming. It's, even if they ban TikTok, I'll go to the Purple app. I'll go to YouTube. I'll go to Kick, wherever, because it's like that. It's gonna stay with me where I like forming the friendships. So I would say that, man.
No, of course.
Don't be afraid of forming new skill sets, and failure is part of the process to eventually succeed.
No, do you know what? They are words to live by. If I had one thing to say about that, I would just say if you've ever learned something from something that you've done, then that's as good as a success as anything. Like I wouldn't say
Yep.
that there was like failure involved. Maybe just things ran their course, but you were able to transfer everything that you learned from one thing into another. And to me, I don't think you can call that a failure at all. You've tried your
I
hand at
agree.
many different things, and if anything, it's helped you grow in all kinds of avenues. And like, I think that's definitely 100% something to be proud of. And I think it's like, and the fact that we've managed to sit and have like a 2 hour conversation surrounding all these different things that aren't as big a part of your life anymore. That keeps it alive, 100%, man. And that's something that'll never die. Like, I think you should definitely be. I'm sure you are, but you should definitely
Yeah,
100% be proud about that.
I'll be that uncle that can play the guitar at least, or show them a magic trick. Yeah, you're right. In a way, it is successful in another way. But I guess what I meant is like by the way that the internet sees success, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not a famous musician. Oh, you're not a famous like. But yeah, to me, like I said, I never failed for me because I did these things because I wanted to make people happy with my music, or I wanted to make people laugh with my comedy, or amazed by the magic. But I agree. I agree. If you do something because you want to do it, at the end, what you think is a failure, you'll be left with gems of knowledge that will stay with you forever, and in many ways integrate themselves in other completely different topics, completely different industries. What you learned in comedy can apply to social dynamics and relationships, or vice versa. Like, it's kind of cool how that works. So yeah, I agree, Andy. In a way, everything you try leads to success if you do it right, if you do it authentically, if you do it for yourself and to make others happy and experience something. I think that's what it's all about. Thank you for having me on
Absolutely.
behind the camera. This has been great. This is an actual 2 hour podcast. Crazy.
No, we've had a lot to
I
talk about.
appreciate you taking the time and giving
Oh,
me a second chance at this,
dude, of
man. I
course. Of course,
appreciate you,
we
bro.
have had so much to talk about and it's been incredible. Um, yeah, so today my guest has been Louie Cartoon. You can find him on Twitch at Louie Cartoon and on TikTok. TikTok may not be a thing for a while. We don't know. Nobody knows. But this man has a plethora of content you should go and enjoy. You can follow him at Louis Cartoon on TikTok as well.
It's
At
at Louie Cartoon on everything, on all social handles.
There you go. There you go. That is where you can find today's guest. This has been an incredible conversation, so insightful, and I hope everybody watching here today, whether it's live on Twitch or on playback on Spotify, you've definitely come out of this with something, because I know I for sure absolutely have. We'll be back with Behind the Camera again soon with another guest. Until then, I've been AndyGames. My guest has been Louie Cartoon, and we will see you again very soon. Peace.